A lot of people go through life doing things badly. Racing's important to men who do it well. When you're racing, it's life. Anything that happens before or after, it's just waiting.
Matt Williams got a brilliant start from the third row of the grid.
He's gone, he's hit him, he's straight off at the chase.
And a half-second lead on with the sizzling car in the background.
He has it. Oh, he's round on the last lap.
There's a massive accident.
Next to the inside, what a move, what a move.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to round number 10 of Automobilista Australia's Supercars Championship for 2020. Well, with the second trip to New Zealand behind us, there's only 5 more rounds to go, and we return to home soil and to what was going to be our Sydney Supernight 200. Unfortunately, a few little issues with getting the track ready in time with the floodlights has proven a bit of a challenge, and that means that we're going to end up with still a darkened race, so to speak, but it's going to be an afternoon into the twilight and dusk event for tonight. So the race will finish in a darkened state. Headlights won't be required, but it'll still be a fantastic spectacle nonetheless. But as we just said, it's 5 rounds to go, and time is fast running out for the challengers at the top of the point standings to mow down the advantage that Kurt Stenberg currently enjoys and set themselves in position for a tilt at this year's Supercars Championship come the first couple of weeks of December. Thanks for joining out World Broadcasting's coverage of the series. My name is Steve DeVries. My opposite number, Hans Brunswick, will be along very, very shortly. He's just been delayed slightly, but he will be here tonight, and we do believe we'll have a bit of a roving pit reporter running around in Lewis Wedding as well from time to time. He's taking a back seat from driving duties tonight to keep his eyes on the loose SimSport cars and their progress through the field. So far we've got a field of 18 drivers ready to contest tonight, including 1 or 2 wildcards, and hopefully there'll be another 1 or 2 drivers along toward the back end of tonight's practice session, which has still got the better part of 19 minutes to go. And at the moment we're looking at a very, very tight top 3, even a top 5 you can think of here. Luke Rosella currently leading. Pete Savage and Kurt Stenberg, your top 3. And then we've got Steve Burko, Brenton Foley, Will Devonish, all very, very close together for the next 3 positions as well. But while we wait for Hans Brunswick to come on board and join us in commentary, we will take a bit of a quick look at what happened last time out. So it was the Hamilton 200 from the streets of Hamilton in New Zealand. And initially a good jump away from Kurt Stenberg. There was a little bit of bumping and barging on the run to turn number 1. You can see Thomas McMillan just sticking his nose in there, just upsetting Brenton Foley, forcing him to take evasive action after McMillan got a very, very good start from the first row or the couple of rows back of the grid. There was a little bit of chaos on the opening lap as Brendan Ross found the outside of the chicane a bit like a launching ramp and launched into the stratosphere. And that meant he would have to do a drive-through penalty to repair and also stop for some repairs for damage. Devonish and McMillan had their elbows out pretty early as Will tried to wrestle back the advantage that McMillan had on him in the early going. And this man was pretty quick from the back of the grid. The native Kiwi himself, Scott Stancliffe, was making very light work of the back markers very early on. Ran as high as, I think, 6th position at one point in time. And there were a few angry packs behind. Lewis Wedding getting a little bit too happy on the loud pedal out of turn 8. And still some very, very close combat between McMillan and Devonish and Burko. And this was the big moment. McMillan, for some reason or another, had a bit of a drama through the chicane, collected Devonish on the way down. Very, very lucky not to collect Steve Burko in the process. That ultimately led to his retirement from the race. Turn 1, a favoured passing move for some, but not for others on that occasion. But this was the battle we were starting to get interested in as the pit stops neared. It was the battle for the race lead. Stenberg had led all of the laps up to that point, and Rosella was very, very quick in mowing him down. A bit further behind, Will Devonish was doing his best to recover after the incident on lap 5 with McMillan at the chicane. Had to go the long way around at turn 9. and had to do some pretty hard defending to keep Steve Burko at bay, who'd moved up from the Volvo into the loose Sim Sport Falcon. But a couple of laps away from the pit stop sequence, the race for the lead of the motor race was on. Rosella had caught Stenberg, and the two of them had a fantastic side-by-side battle for the better part of the first of the half of a lap, running side-by-side, plenty of room, and ultimately Rosella would prevail by the time they got to turn 4, and he would hold position through the chicane, which ultimately would secure what he would go on to maintain a pretty comfortable advantage for a while. Brendan Ross having a bit of fun here. I wouldn't say a bit of fun, but he had a bit of a moment out of the first corner, looping it, and Stancliffe with some evasive action coming out of the pits during the pit lane sequence. He wasn't immune, though. Even the former race leader and the current points leader had a few skirmishes with the very, very tight confines of the Hamilton Street Circuit. Move for Will Devonish at turn 1 on Lime Mitch, who had gone long and who was actually running pretty solidly in the top 5 spots for a little while, but he was starting to suffer a little bit, and Burko would also find a way past the Monster Energy Mustang a couple of laps later as Lime Mitch's pace sort of went away from him. And Burko nearly replicating what Kurt Stenberg did with the wall on the exit of turn 4. Gave that position straight back to Lime Mitch, and he would have to do the hard work all over again. Got the same trick done coming down into turn number 1 like he did a couple of laps earlier, and made the pass and made it stick. Battle between the seasoned veteran in Brenton Foley and the young gun in Liam Spencer. Liam very much coming of age, going toe-to-toe with the defending Supercars or Super 2 champion from last year, Brenton Foley, and really showed no mercy, putting moves around the outside, showed no timidness, very, very aggressive, but very, very fair as well. And that was all the way through the mid part of that race. They spent the better part of 7 or 8 laps locked together, and in this particular occasion it was time for Foley to realise that the gig was up, and he backed out well and truly before the chicane and gave that position up. This one was a bit of a weird incident. Caelan Duncan in the Nissan clouting the inside wall on the run out of pit lane, which is something you don't see very, very often. Toward the back end of the race, a couple of laps from home, we were starting to get interested in this battle. Not only was Luke Rosella well and truly gone, but Kurt Stenberg's pace had dropped off, and Will Devonish was honing in on the back of him like a missile, but he needed a couple more laps to get the job done. He ran out of time in the end, and it was Luke Rosella, the kid, taking his first race victory in our Supercars Championship for Automobilista Australia, with Stenberg just managing to hang on at the end of the day to second place from Will Devonish by 0.4 of a second. Daylight gap back to Steve Burko, and those gentlemen were the only 4 cars that finished on the lead lap. Everybody else finishing 1 lap down or multiple laps down. It was a very, very small field for Hamilton, one of the smallest grids that we have seen in AMS Oz Supercars so far this year, but nonetheless still a very, very competitive race. Hans Brunswick has joined me in commentary for the minute, but it looks like he's just getting a few things in order, so hopefully he won't be too far away. But again, we have a bit of a look, and we've still got a little bit of practice time left in the practice session. Stenberg has now moved to the top of the standings. Looks like most of the qualifying runs are starting to get into place now. Stenberg at 1:27.668 is definitely sort of qualifying pace that we're expecting to see, or maybe even a little bit quicker than that a little bit later on tonight. Have a quick look at the Supercars calendar. So what is tonight and what is still to come. So Sydney Supernight 200 tonight. The Phillip Island 250, which returns to the same format as the Adelaide round at the beginning of the season. So 2 weeks from now we'll have a qualifying session, and then another week further on from that we will have the race session on the 24th of September. The Gold Coast on the 5th of November, which is 2 weeks after our Bathurst 500 round. And still a couple of kinks to be worked out with the back end of the season. Sandown and the Bend. Sandown definitely going ahead. The Bend is still a little bit up in the air at the moment. We did have some timing dramas back in the GT3 round, and we're just seeing if we can resolve some of those before we get to that round. So there may be a late change in the calendar in terms of tracks, but definitely not in terms of the dates that we will be racing. Having a look at the point standings coming into tonight's proceedings, so Kurt Stenberg still leads the championship comfortably at the moment, 195 points ahead of Will Devonish. And then Brenton Foley is still mathematically well and truly in the fray. He's 240 behind Will and still 435 behind Stenberg, so he's still well and truly in the picture. There's some pretty nice battles shaping up in the mid-pack there with Steve Burko, even though he's got the Volvo symbol next to his name there. We do believe he will be running a Loose Sim Sport FGX Falcon for the remainder of the season. And over to Termo, who's doing quite handily for the CRE Motorsport team in 6th place there. Luke Rosella, with his first win, has started to vault his way up the order, and with the results that he keeps piling on, I wouldn't be too out of line to expect him to be in the top 5 come the end of tonight if his form continues over the way that it is. Looking over at our driver in focus this week, and we did allude to this last time out as well, with Brendan Ross moving over to PBF Race Engineering, formerly of the PBF team Bundaberg stable. Just a comparison as to where he is on the point standings compared to last year. So you can see there, 8th overall at the end of last season with just shy of 2,000 points. He got a win last year at the first race of the second round of the season at Albert Park, and he ended up with 4 podiums as well. He had, I think, another second place finish and a trio of third places in there to go with his 1 win at Albert Park. You have a look at where he is placed at the moment. He's been a little bit hit and miss in terms of how he's fared so far this season. We look down the order, and he's been had a best result of 4th place at the second race of Pukekohe. He's had a 5th, a 6th, a 7th in there as well. He's had quite a handful of results outside the top 10 as well. Last year, for all the races that he contested, he was a perennial top 10 finisher, well and truly in the top 10 on just about every race that he finished, aside from 1, whereas it hasn't enjoyed the same success this time out as well. We have a look at the team standings. Team standings pretty much unchanged in terms of what car or what teams are in what position from the last round. Just the gaps are a little bit different, still being dominated by CRE Race Engineering, Loose Sim Sport and PBF Race Engineering pretty much fighting it out for 2nd and 3rd at the moment. And CRE Motorsport is still mathematically within a chance of getting to position 3 on the standings tonight. Sorry, not tonight, by the end of the season. Though they've got a little bit of work to do there, and that's after the 9th round. Just getting a late bit of word coming through from Brian Walsh that he's going to unfortunately withdraw from tonight. There's a little bit of a drama going there, says it's too soft, so I'm not sure if that means it's too soft in terms of the car's a bit soft or something else, but I'm not sure if Lewis Wedding, who's joined me in the commentary box very, very briefly, can maybe shed a little bit of light on that, Lewis. But not good to see late withdrawals, but none all to the same. We can always understand if guys want to withdraw at short notice.
Yeah, I think in this case, he hasn't had too much practice, and at the same time, when I was down there, he was cheering on the footy, hoping Toby Green would miss a shot at goal, which he promptly did. So I think he's a little bit undercooked and a little bit more vested into the football. So that's why he's dropped out tonight, unfortunately.
I was going to say, the doggies aren't playing again, are they?
No, it's Carlton and GWS at the moment.
I was going to say, we've had a bit of a scheduling drama with some of Brian Walsh's escapades with, I think, in Super 2 as well, with the doggies always seem to be playing whenever it's a race night, so I wasn't too sure whether they were playing or not, but no, he's just said that he's soft for pulling out, so I guess we'll leave it at that for the time being. We've still got a little bit of time left on the clock in the practice session, so while Hans is still sorting himself out, actually I think we might have Hans Brunswick now, and if he is ready to go, Hans, it's a very good evening to you, sir.
A very good evening to you, Steve. Very good evening to Lewis and all who are watching out there tonight. It's fantastic to be back here once again at Sydney Motorsport Park. Great event here in Super 2 earlier on in the year, and that was ably organised by yourself, Lewis. That was a very good job. But we're keen to see what calamity or what interesting things is going to unfold in the Supercars Championship. And we've got a solid complement of 16 cars already in the server, and there may be a few more to come. So keen to see how it all goes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're sort of targeting 17 or 18. I think there's, with Brian Walsh, a late withdrawal. I think there might be one more to come in to make it 18, but we'll see how we go. Before we get to the qualifying session, though, we might have a bit of a look at the hot lap, the community hot lap that we always like to do here for Supercars. And, well, it was a bit of a segue. No better man to do it than the man who got his first race win last time out. So we're going to hand it honours over to Luke Rosella this time around.
Hi, I'm Luke Rosella, driver of number 5 All-Australian Races Volvo, and this is a lap of Sydney Motorsport Park. Across the start finish line now. Coming to turn 1. Really fast corner, requires a bit of control braking to get those turned in. Use a bit of the curb on the right hand side. Coming to turn 2, braking the 100 metre board. I'll take a double apex in this corner, a bit wide, I feel. Coming to turn 3, hug the apex as we go over the hill. Use a bit of that curbing on the left hand side. Coming to turn 4, don't want to take this part of the complex too fast. You want the car to be on the right hand side to get a good run into turn 5. All the road on the left hand side, all the road on the right hand side, all the curbing. Coming up to turn number 6, sort of a 90-degree left hander this one. Easy on the power, this one a really good exit. Over the bridge, in this left hander. Too much speed is you want to get the car on the left hand side of the corner here. This quite tight, tricky hairpin, bit of a late apex. Use all the curbing on the left hand side as we come up to this real tricky complex, the final part of that. Bit of trail braking, get the car turned in, use all the curbing. You want a real late apex, it's the final corner, get a nice run. Nice on the power, use all the curbing, and then concentrate on your shift lights, up the gears, and across the finish line. That's been a lap at Sydney Motorsport Park. I've been Luke Rosella on the Volvo S60. Good luck to everyone tonight. Back to the commentary box.
Good on you, Luke. Thanks for handing back to the commentary team, and well done on not only your first win last time out, but your first flying lap in the community hot laps here at AMS Oz. Hans, the Sydney Motorsport Park circuit. It's got multiple configurations, but the one on your screen is the one that everybody's most familiar with, and that's the layout we commonly use for supercars. Tonight, 200 kilometres distance. You literally rack up 200 kilometres just before you get to the start-finish line. So hence why it's 51 laps, and you can see there it says 200.43, which means 430 metres before the line. It chalks up the minimum race distance required. Bit of a tricky circuit in some spots, this one, though, isn't it?
Yeah, a bit of a tricky circuit. It's got a very fast and flowing nature. It's kind of like Phillip Island in that sense. However, there are some particularly tight corners. Turn 2, Turn 3, and also Turn 8 are some of the problem zones. And also the run through turns 10 and 11. They get pretty hairy and pretty interesting at times as well. Also interesting to note that in the driver's briefing, they will go through Turn 10 and 11. And if you use too much of that concrete and asphalt apron just off the exit of turns 10 and 11, if there is a car that goes inside you, the car outside or the car on the exit of the circuit, or rather outside the track limits, has to yield. So you can use as much of that as you want, but if a car does go inside you, you'll have to yield. But 3.93 kilometres, 11 turns, and a very good racetrack, fast and flowing in the sense of a European-like circuit.
And look at the track records down there as well. At the moment, they are getting absolutely smashed to a bird. And so the race lap record we expect is going to be well and truly broken tonight, and the qualifying record to boot. They will both go. It's just going to be a matter of to who. Qualifying runs, we're actually seeing some drivers being able to post 26s. We've just seen before the briefing started a 26.8 from Pete Savage. Most of the guys on race runs were well and truly doing mid 27s on their best race laps, so we expect that we're going to see them both broken tonight. Interesting you mentioned about the final two turns there, Hans, with the concrete apron. That is something that carried over from Super 2. There is another part of the circuit that is being pointed out as well, which is down at turn 5, which is not quite the bottommost corner on the map, but it's the next one up, just on the left, the coming out of Sector 1. You go round the right-hander, there's a left-hander that comes up next. There is a lot of apron on the right-hand side, and the drivers, again, will be allowed to use it. But if there's a car there that decides it wants to make a move, then the car on the outside has to yield. And that part of the circuit is also pretty synonymous with some track limits as well. So drivers are being warned to make sure they understand where the track limits are. So if the game penalises them, it's not the admin's fault. They won't be removing any penalties for any silly things that go on there. It's up to the drivers to understand where the limits are.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't need anyone coaching any of our drivers what to do. The drivers, they've got a head on their shoulders and they best use it. So I think that's a good move there. And also, basically, it just says that you can use as much of the track as you want, as long as the game does not give you a track cut or a penalty for it. And I think that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, precisely. Now, we're just waiting for a little bit of a change to happen. Will Devonish is just doing a little change to the server. Does a great job, as always, running the servers here at AMS Oz. They're just setting the time scale correctly on the circuit to start. So tonight's a 3:30 p.m. start in the afternoon with the 2 times time scale. So it's sort of going to be dusk by the time we get to about 6 o'clock roughly. Headlights won't be required, but it'll pretty much be a sun-setting event. So as much as the game says that tonight says it's Sydney Supernight 200, unfortunately, we said earlier, the floodlights just we couldn't get them working in time, so we've gone to the next best thing, which is finishing in the dusk, which is still going to be a pretty nice spectacle.
More like the Sydney Super Twilight 200, so pretty impressive. Still going to be interesting to see the track state change as the time goes on.
Yeah, it's going to be reset back to the normal time scale. Sorry, not time scale, the normal track settings that it was at the beginning of qualifying. So the track usage had gone all the way up, so they haven't lost any of the track performance, so to speak. We still expect we're going to see some pretty sticky times at the top of the standings, but we'll see how things go. A couple of drivers just getting themselves ready to jump back in, and at the moment we've got 17 with 1 or 2 more still to arrive. Hans, what are you looking forward to about tonight? I guess there's plenty of things that we can surmise over the first 9 rounds. We're up to round 10, so sort of about 2/3 of the way through this season now. There's a lot of talking points on the table. I guess the big one we always talk about is championship implications. Time is fast running out for some of these guys to put themselves in position to challenge Kurt Stenberg, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Kurt Stenberg has been head and shoulders above the rest for this early stage of the season, but anything can happen in the final few rounds of the season. And now that we've passed the halfway point, it's basically his championship to lose at this stage. And also some of the drivers, they'll be trying a few different things. Maybe they are down and out in the championship, but definitely not down and out in the hunt for race wins. So it's going to be interesting in this race. You can run a few different tyre pressure settings if you really wanted to. You can go a bit lower and have a bit more grip, but then the tyres will drop off a bit earlier, and this is a high deck circuit. And we've seen that previously in the Super 2 race here, which you and I raced in, Steve, and it's going to be a matter of trying to make your tyres last for 200k.
Yeah, definitely going to be a 2-stop strategy tonight, and they're talking that they can get somewhere in the realms of about 19 laps to fuel. So you can do the math there. Stop on lap 19, stop on lap 38, and from lap 38 you'll be comfortably able to make the 51 lap distance. You might even look to maybe even split the strategy a little bit differently and try and break it up into maybe 17 laps and 17 laps again, and then you can sort of make it home at that point. Basically 51 divided by 3 stints is 17 laps is your critical number. So you can actually stop at lap 34 and make it home. It just depends on how you want to slice and dice it with regards to fuel and tyre wear. Do you actually want to try and have a better car and fresher rubber toward the end of the race? Do you want to split it evenly? How does it? How do you want to make this work?
Yeah, there are a number of permutations you can go through in order to try and make it to the finish. But I think the go here would be try and leave the final fuel stint to be the one that you're a bit lighter on, so you can have something to fight with at the end of the race. Considering that it's going to be 2 full tanks of fuel, it's also not going to be limited to if you can change tyres. The tyres will get done in that time that it takes to fill up the fuel. But if you are down the order, you might want to take a bit of a gamble with track position, but you are going to make those tyres go an awful long way in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we are getting ready for qualifying. 10-minute session as per usual. Just about everybody coming out of the lane to start with. There's Stenberg, there's Cam Rutledge, there's the Lou Simsport, Falcon and Burko behind as well. Wayne Spencer, Brenton Foley's on the move as well. Looks like Lime Mitch is the pioneer at the head of pit lane. He is too. Nobody wasting any time. They're all queuing up. They're straight into it. And Lime Mitch is the pioneer for sure.
We're all piling out. I've just seen Burko, Callan Duncan, Brendan Ross and Liam Spencer coming out, and they're lined all the way down pit lane. Very interesting. I see Benjamin Rhodes as well there as well. Rhodey was a Spencer. I believe the only car in the pit lane I can see is Thomas McMillan, but he has a qualifying ban. And yeah, they're all out there. Termo's out there. Luke Rosella's out there. They're all coming out.
Yep, they're all on the way out. Interesting you mentioned Thomas McMillan. Some of the items that were on the review of the Hamilton 200 were investigated after the race. They were brought up during the broadcast, so they were immediately reviewable. And given he didn't finish the race, especially the one at the back chicane, he was adjudged to have been at fault for some, I think it was careless driving, I think it was the way that it was written. And as a result, because he didn't finish the race, he was given a rear of grid start. And then for the other incident at turn 1, the 2 incidents combined have led to him being upgraded to a pit lane start. So that means he will be a full sector behind the field. So he'll have to wait probably about 25 seconds or so from the race start before he gets the green light at the end of pit lane to venture out and commence his race of 51 laps. Now, Stenberg was just getting a little bit close to Lime Mitch there. I think he was just harassing the Monster Energy Mustang along. So I think you can see... He was very
competitive.
Yeah.
He was very competitive in the Super 2 Championship. He finished a stellar second behind his teammate in that series, Steve Burko. And let's see if he can perform tonight. This is a track he is very familiar with, and he did have a couple of good performances here in the Super 2 round.
Yeah, he did very, very well competing at one of the high levels. This is sort of like the same round where a lot of the Kiwis, Scott Stancliffe and Tim Redmond, really started to stamp their authority and start to really challenge for the top steps of the podium results in the Super 2 races as well. But Lime Mitch very, very familiar with this circuit. So him and Steve Burko should be right up the pointy end. We'll be expecting to see them maybe in the top 10 at least tonight. 28-1 to the first sector split for Lime Mitch is not too bad.
Pebble 5 for Peter.
Keeping an eye on the sector times as they're coming in. Kurt Stenberg currently the man with the quickest sector 1 time, 27.4. Pete Savage 27.5, so those guys are a little bit quicker than Lime Mitch at the moment.
Stenberg is approaching the second sector split just at turn 8. The hairpin turn just at the exit.
Yep, you see it come up
and he
right
runs
now.
He's going to do a 102.9, so very, very good from Stenberg. It's probably going to be in the 27s or maybe even the 26s if the track state is willing. He doesn't use much of that apron. He doesn't go too far out because it does get a bit difficult to get the nose back in.
Yeah, and you also got to look for a late apex on the final corner as well. Now, Stenberg's getting very, very nice toe, so he might have timed this pretty well to get a nice drag from the Mustang. Mitch with a 29.3, Stenberg a 27.1, so not the same sorts of times that we've seen in the early practice session as he aborts that lap. Pete Savage was
very
behind.
26 there.
and Brendan Ross launches himself up as well, so time's starting to come in thick and fast here. Termo with a 29.4, slots himself in P7, ahead of his teammate, stablemate Cam Rutledge. Wayne Spencer and Rhodey in the 10 at the moment. Still some of the heavy hitters to start setting some times though. Luke Rosella up to P3. And looking to see if we can pick up Will Devonish here. He is only just starting a lap now, so he was one of the last drivers out of the pit lane. And he's just coming through turns 2 and 3 now. Other drivers yet to set a time. Dane Liccardo and Brenton Foley. Will Devonish up at the first sector split. And Liccardo has now set a time good enough for 12th. And Foley good enough for P5.
Now, continues on with this lap. This is going to be definitely into the 26s.
Yeah, we have seen a 26 already in practice so far. That was the last of the real qualifying runs before the driver's briefing. And that was set by Pete Savage with a 26.8, which is the quickest lap. It was a 26.814 to be more precise.
So he's just dropped off a little bit by 1/10 in the second sector, Will Devonish. He's done a 1:02.77 to the second sector split. He's coming through the final corner now. Ooh, goes a bit wide there, tries to get the nose for a very late apex. He does get the nose back in, uses all the concrete apron, the curb on the exit, runs it straight to the finish line. Will Devonish, what will he come across the line with? It will be a 27.15. So he just hit Stenberg at this stage of the qualifying session.
Yeah, not much in that. Pretty much, I think, lost it mostly through that final sector too. The car wiggled a little bit through the power application at the final corner.
Very strong in the first sector, but just didn't have much in the second and third sectors, but just enough to pip Stenberg to the line. But I hazard a guess that Stenberg will be going out for another run.
He's on the run now. He's just rounded up traffic at the pit lane. He's gone very deep at turn 2, and that's going to ruin that set of tyres. See if he presses on. At the moment he's pressing on, but I think he's just going to prepare himself for another lap. But yeah, overshot the braking zone well and truly there at turn 2. Who else out there is having a bit of a run? A few guys just setting themselves, I think, ready to go. There's Luke Rosella, Brenton Foley. They're probably preparing themselves to have a go. Steve Burko's jumped into Lewis Wedding's car and he let Stenberg go. He probably didn't actually realise Stenberg was on a slow lap, having aborted that lap there. Handy from Burko in P6 at the minute. And Brennan Ross, Lyle Mitch, Liam Spencer and Termo, the balance of the 10.
Savage is on an out lap. He's getting ready to do another run.
He sure is. So Pete Savage currently P3 and he's just coming around the final corner now. He'll be definitely marking the 26 as the datum time to chase.
On the rev limiter into turn 1. Very good run there.
In the rev limiter on 6th gear as well. Got the gear ratios just about spot on perfect then. Little lock up into turn 2, but that's not terrible because it allows him to take a double apex for that particular corner, which is kind of the way you take that corner a lot of the time. Same sort of way you take Southern Loop at Phillip Island. It's a bit of a double apex corner and it allows you to apply the power at precisely the right time. But that little bit of an excursion with the kicking up some of the grass has cost him a 1/10 of a second in terms of where his reference time is to Will Devonish at the minute. Not that far away from his own PB though. Getting a little bit untidy on the outside of turn 6.
In third gear in a lot of spots where I'd use second, so maybe he's running a very short gear ratio in the car. Bit of lock brake there. Does get a late apex at turn 8. And, he's not that far away, so this is a very good time from Pete Savage.
Yeah, he's picked up some time on his PB here. He's really hammered it hard through the final, through that part of Sector 2. Now, I don't know if he's picked up a violation for going that wide at the final corner. We'll have to see what the control line says when he gets to it. But he was very, very committed through the flip-flop and through the final corner. And he lost time. He improved his PB, but he did lose time by getting super, super aggressive and just on the outside of that corner. Again, costing some time, but still very tight at the top for the top three.
Going on another lap, and he's just taken a
lowered the mark.
Yeah,
Stenberger's lowered the mark, so we're into the 26s, 26.972. So he didn't come in and change tyres. He decided to press on and just clean the tyres up and have another go.
Pete Savage is up 0.2 of a second at the first split, 27.359.
Kurt Stenberg's up 3.5 tenths on his own marker at sector 1. So this is something incredible that we're seeing. We're going to see some couple of battles duke it out here. Oh, and Savage has looped it. Yep. So if he wants, if he wants another lap, he's going to have to continue on and just clean it up. And hopefully he's got enough fuel to have another go. He lets Stenberg by. Will Devonish is up on the sector 1 split as well, but that's the current Kurt Stenberg split. He's only up half the amount that Stenberg currently is on his own time. And look at the margin now. It's half a second for Kurt Stenberg on his own marker, if you don't mind. Very, very tidy through the chicane. Using a different line compared to a lot of drivers. Very, very tight approach to the final corner. Could we see a mid-26? This is going to, if it is, it'll take some beating. And it's a 26.6, so he lost a little bit of time, but he does get another lap if he's fueled for it. But that is going to be a marker very, very hard to chase. And look, Will Devonish is already miles off the marker. I don't think he's going to get to the line here with enough time on the clock unless he's timed it. The time is counting. I don't think he's going to have enough time. He's going to have to settle for P2 here. And checkered flag. He's out. So that is a front row potentially for Will. What's Pete Savage doing at the minute? To sector 1. Up on his PB. 10th and a half away from Kurt Stenberg though, but he's got to push on.
A lot stronger, I should say, in the second split, or the second sector. Oh, yellow flag zone.
Oh, yeah, he's made a meal of it. He's made a meal of it. He's awarded the lap. We've also seen Brenton Foley leapfrog Luke Rosella in all of this. So Rosella didn't come out for another crack, or if he did, he had a bit of an issue. So Foley's going to get another lap. And he improves. Yep, he does. He improves his time, but not his position. But he wasn't that far off Pete Savage in the end. So that's a very strong result for Foley, with Rosella and Burko to share the next row. Liam Spencer moved ahead of Lime Mitch in that proceeding as well. That's a very tight margin. Have a look at that between Liam Spencer and Lime Mitch. That is 62 thousandths of a second. And then, bit of a issue going on in the garage there. And Brendan Ross and Wayne Spencer in the top 10. So both the Spencers in the 10, both the PBF cars in the top 10. And
it doesn't improve. He's still in 6th.
Two of the SimSport Falcons in the 10. And Cam Rutledge improves his PB. I think he's the last man across the line, I believe. No, Brendan Ross will be the last man across the line. I do apologise. And he has gone through now. In actual fact, that's a... there he goes. He moves up to P7. So that's another late move. So good late move for Brendan Ross, advancing 2 positions. So that means he'll share a row with Liam Spencer. And Lime Mitchell share a row with Wayne Wazza Spencer.
Action-packed qualifying session, another action-packed qualifying session of 10 minutes, and another pole to Kurt Stenberg with 26.6, very good time. Unfortunately, Pete Savage wasn't able to replicate his 26.8 that he did in the practice session, but he was there or thereabouts for the whole practice session. Unfortunately, made a couple of mistakes in the second sector.
Yeah, couldn't sadly replicate the lap that we'd seen him do in practice, and if he was able to do that, it would have only been good enough for second place with the time that Kurt Stenberg put on the board. Super, super competitive. Purple in all 3 sectors. We're looking at all the times here. There's a 27.2 in the first sector. The timing's just gone away from the live races timing, but he was purple in all 3 sectors and did most of the damage in sector 1. So getting your braking properly sorted for turn 2, which we saw him have that little issue a couple of laps before he set that staggering time. And the biggest part for me on this circuit, Hans, is turn 1, the approach, the high-speed nature of it. You just got to give it a little bit of brake just to get the nose to settle, just so you can get the car turned in, but you don't want to scrub off a ton of speed going into turn 1, but you need to scrub off just enough to avoid the car understeering.
Yeah, it's a bit of an art form getting into the turn one. It is a big balancing act. You got to make sure you don't bowl it off the road, and make sure you don't end up in the fence or the sand trap. And you just got to clip that curb and get the nose in and use all of that exit curb. Don't use 1 inch more than what you need to, and brake a big deep breath under brakes into turn two. Double apex, or rather V the corner, depending on however you want to take it. Another one of my Hans Brunswickisms there. But a very, very interesting circuit, this Eastern Creek. It's built in a nondescript location in the world, but I believe it's a very nice circuit to race at.
Yeah, definitely a little bit of a unique place where it's located. It's sort of, if you're looking at it on a map of where it is in Sydney, it's in Western Sydney, or close to Western Sydney. The nearest attractions to it, I believe, are the Sydney Wet and Wild, which is just up the road. There's the Atura Blacktown Hotel, which is just around the corner from the facility. Given this is in Eastern, or formerly known as Eastern Creek, it still is in the suburb of Eastern Creek. Makes it a bit weird to know that the Atura Blacktown Hotel, which is literally a kilometre up the road, is nowhere near Blacktown, but it's still called Blacktown for some reason. I don't know why. But the only other thing that's good about its location is there's a little pub that's nearby to this place. It's called the Cricketers Arms Hotel. It's just down the road, and it is a fantastic place to eat. Good cheap eat if you're in that part of the region of Sydney. Got to go there and try some of the old-fashioned English pot pies and stuff like that. It's a great place to visit.
A lot of the guys that race up in New South Wales, they always make fun of the place because it smells like a rubbish dump, because it's actually built not far away from a landfill in Eastern Creek. So Sydney Motorsport Park, good circuit, but it is the butt of quite a few jokes, not for the circuit itself, but for its location.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong there. There's a few... It's also very close to the Quarry Precinct that they used to have in... it was a place... It's got two names. Its technical name is Pemulwuy, but a lot of people refer to it as Greystanes. Literally about 3 or 4 kilometres as the crow flies, there is what used to be an old quarry, and they've converted it into an industrial precinct. There's a lot of transport companies there, and a number of distribution facilities in there as well. Companies like Asahi, which owns Schweppes Beverages now, are in that area. And it's a fantastic place to visit. When I first went there, it was very daunting, because you're driving into this area, all you've got is these huge, vast walls of ground that are just rising up, and they just seem to go on forever. It gets quite cold in that area, and for a little while the phone reception was very, very poor, but they've since improved it. But yeah, it's interesting what they can turn out of an old quarry precinct into an industrial precinct in a number of, I think about 10 years they've taken it from strength to strength. It's pretty cool, actually.
Now that we're continuing on the geographical tour of Eastern Creek in Western Sydney, it is near the aptly named Rudy Hill, and you can get a good feed down at the Rudy Hill RSL.
Yeah, fantastic place that, actually. I was there with I think it was a friend of mine a number of years ago. I think it was the year we had the election between Tony Abbott and Kevin Rudd, and we went for dinner at the Rudy Hill RSL, and we came out wondering why there was a whole bunch of reporters standing around. And I do mean there were reporters everywhere. It turned out that was the night that they were having a live televised debate at the Rudy Hill RSL, and we walked out about 30 seconds to a minute before the Prime Minister at the time and the opposition leader walked out behind us. That was a bit worrying, that we were walking into something we didn't know what was going on.
And you would hope that the bodyguards didn't take exception to that, and thankfully they didn't.
No, we were lucky.
You
we
are
were bloody
here
lucky.
to tell the tale today.
That was,
well, that's the thing, you walk into something, you don't know what's going on, and honestly, a lot of people don't even know what's going on.
No, it's one of those things that there was a lot of traffic in the area at the night. We were wondering what was going on. We couldn't quite put our finger on it, and then after we came out, when we realised what was going on, we're like, shit, we actually walked out the wrong door.
One of the stories, one of those stories, you're just like, how did we even do this? And yeah, one of those things, I guess.
Yeah,
We've all got one.
We've all got one, or one of those sort of stories. I guess that's probably my best one of the lot. I don't think I've got very many others after that.
I don't go outside, so I wouldn't know anything about it.
Well, we can't go outside at the moment in this lockdown. That's part of the drama we have, and I guess it's a prudent point. You'll notice tonight Brenton Foley's running his Are You OK livery, which he ran at Albert Park. And Are You OK Day is actually next week. It's on the 10th of September. And one of the big things challenging a lot of people at the minute with, the COVID crisis, not just in Victoria, but also nationwide as well, as everyone's mental health. So as much as it is a pain in the backside, everyone, we've got to look after not only ourselves, but we've got to look after each other as well, by whatever means, whatever legal means we possibly can, given what we're up against right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more with that message. But you'd think that people would realise that mental health is only a response to the main issues of job losses and all sorts of economic turmoil that's happening in our great state of Victoria right now. But one of those things, I guess, we'll look back on it and we'll wonder how we ever survived it.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. A couple of drivers starting to get their yah-yahs out, as the Rolling Stones would like to say, just getting out there and planting the throttle. A little bit of drift action you can see there from Pete Savage as he just gets all those nasty things out of his system before we go racing, as time in the warm-up session has expired and we get ourselves ready for the grid to form up. 51 laps the distance. We expect this is going to take around about 75 to 80 minutes to complete tonight, just judging by the estimated numbers that we're seeing on our screens. And Lewis Wedding with us, I believe you probably tend to agree with that sort of time summation, Lewis, a roughly 75 to 80 minute race tonight?
Yeah, around about that long. And the tyres, as Hans alluded to a little bit early on, obviously is an issue a little bit in the Super 2s, and it will be, I reckon, a bit of an issue around here. So I reckon towards the end of a stint, say lap 14, 15, you are going to see some guys just losing the rear a little bit. I have been talking up and down with a number of the drivers out there, and some drivers are happy where their car's at. I know Savage, Peter, he was a little bit unhappy with and disappointed that his rear end a little bit unstable, but he'll be hoping to work on that throughout the race.
Just waiting for the formation lap to get underway here. I think Will Devonish may have gone slightly too early. It's a little bit eager. So Hans, here's the grid of 18 cars.
Kurt Stenberg off pole yet again this season with a 1:26.6, a very stellar time, and definitely set the time boards alight. Following him is Will Devonish on the front row of the grid on the outside on the run into turn 1. Pete Savage couldn't replicate what he did late in practice with a 26.8. Unfortunately, he couldn't get into that bracket and unfortunately had to settle for third place. Brenton Foley is running the It's Okay Not to Be Okay livery again on this car. Very important message, and he's looking to get a good result yet again this season, starting from 4th on the grid. Luke Rosella, race winner last time out at Hamilton, and our community hot lap setter, he will start from 5th. Steve Burko, the Super 2 Championship, recently crowned Super 2 Championship winner, he will start from 6th in the Lewis Weddingmobile. Brendan Ross, standing in for Phil Bloke at PBF Holden Racing Team for the rest of the season, will start from 7th. Liam Spencer out 8th, and he's missed the grid actually, so he's going to start from pit lane. Lime Mitch from 9th, and Wayne Spencer will round out the top 10. Zach Ross and Turbo will lead us off the 6th row of the grid. Cam Rutledge and Kalen Duncan, another Super 2 runner, making the step up to Supercars. Brody, another Super 2 runner as well. Dane Liccardo, he's going to make his first appearance tonight in Supercars. And Glenn Miles from 17th. Thomas McMillan from 18th. And that rounds out our grid. Thomas McMillan, he's actually in the pit lane as well, so he will have a pit lane start.
Yeah, so he's going to now start behind Liam Spencer, who's missed the start. So that's a bit of a disappointment for Liam Spencer. And a bit more of a tricky situation, I guess, for Thomas McMillan. He would have probably been expecting to start from the pit lane all on his own. And he now has another car ahead of him that he has to negotiate, and a very quick runner at that. Liam Spencer's definitely no slouch, is he, Hans?
No, not at all. He's definitely one of the, I wouldn't say pace setters, but he is improving with every run he has out there, and soon he will probably get himself into Pro A territory. So watch this space for Liam Spencer. He's definitely a future star in the making.
Yeah, and I think I remarked on the final interviews for Super 2 last week that had Liam not have had other commitments and unfortunately had to withdraw from Super 2, he probably would have finished third in that championship instead of myself. Such was the form that he'd shown over the limited number of rounds that he had done. Very, very strong top 6 finisher in most of the races that he contested.
He was leading the Super 2 race in race 1 from Tim Redmond and myself, and unfortunately a mistake took him out of that one. But he was leading a good part of that race, and he had a massive lead as well. So Liam Spencer, he definitely knows how to drive around this circuit, and hopefully he can put that to good use today.
Good to see McMillan's now in the lane behind Liam Spencer, just waiting on the rest of the grid to get set for 51 laps of Sydney Motorsport Park. The lights are on, and we are about to go racing. Away we go. Good launch from Stenberg. It was actually pretty even on the secondary phase of the start, so Devonish may try and hang around the outside, or he might just try and slot in. He decides to go the ladder and slot in. Burko has had a pretty handy start as well. He's on the outside of Luke Rosella, and Foley and Savage are pretty much away as they started as well. Burko trying to go the long way around Luke Rosella, who's having absolutely none of it, and pretty much I think the top 10 have pretty much, with the exception of Liam Spencer, pretty much stayed where they were on lap 1 so far. Very, very clean start.
Very clean start indeed. Very even from the front 3 rows actually. So they were 2 by 2 by 2 into the first corner. And Stenberg is trying to open up a margin already. It's going to be 0.9 of a second by the time he gets to turn 6. The left-hander, 90-degree left-hander. Bit of a long radius corner as well. So, and Will Devonish will have to fend off the fast-starting Pete Savage. He's definitely gained a lot on the final sector there. Oh, sorry, the second sector, I should say.
Wayne Spence taking a bit of a look at Lion Mitchell's Mustang for P9, and he's also having to fend off Zach Ross in P10 at the minute. Good to see that the pit lane starters have gotten away cleanly as well. So far, Liam Spencer still ahead of Thomas McMillan. And I think everyone just got to... Oh, there's a spinner at the back. I think that's Turmo that's gone around, and yes, it is. So Turmo going around at the final corner. And he's still got some margin back there. And McMillan has actually retired. So that's an interesting one. We might go back and have a bit of a look at that to see what happened to Thomas McMillan.
Dane Liccardo has actually fired into the back of Turmo. Just unsettled the car, and unfortunately it went round.
Yep, so through the flip-flop and a little bit of braking, and yep, just got into the back of Turmo there. So probably just a little bit caught out on lap 1 with where everybody needs to brake. And Turmo gets going again, and away he goes.
So Thomas McMillan, he's just pulled up the side of the road at the exit of turn 6. And he's just stopped and just retired. So not sure what's going on there.
Yeah, neither am I. I'm just having a look on the other screen just to see what happened. And yeah, he just decided to do half a lap and pull over. So that is a little bit unusual.
Maybe the recurrence of shifter dramas potentially.
Not 100% sure. We might be interested to have a bit of a look at that a bit later on and just see if there was any dramas. I mean, we did see at Hidden Valley that he blew an engine all the way down the main straight and caused a bit of calamity with some drivers having to go around him. So everything has just settled down there for the minute. The top, oh, look at the yellow flag. I was about to say, that's settling down. It's the yellow flag here. That's Glenn Miles, who's gone around. Yep, that's a Scuderia Alitalia FGX Falcon that's gone around off of, what's that? It's turn 10, or turn, no, sorry, not turn 10, turn 8, sorry. And he's having some trouble trying to get that thing going again. What's he done here?
And he's DNF out of the race. Unfortunate for him.
I reckon he's having some trouble trying to find reverse here. And he was on the outside, he was on the marbles and looped it. There he goes. Exit stage left. And into the fence. So it's a second retirement from the race.
We've actually got Pete and Devonish battling pretty hard at the moment. We've also had a number of changes. Had Ross and Spencer get together, Zach Ross that is, get together at turn 1 at the start of the second lap there. That's why they're at the back of the field at the moment, because poor old Wayne ended up off in the boonies and Zach Ross was redressing the position.
They lost a number of positions as a result there. Just seen Pete Savage go through on Will Devonish at turn 6. pretty easy pass in the end. Just got some nice drive and traction out of turn 5. Have a look at this freight train now behind Savage. He's got Devonish, Foley, Rosella, Burko and Ross all pretty much within the same frame for a few seconds ago. There they all are there. And meanwhile, Kurt Stenberg is galloping off into the distance.
Will Devonish, for whatever reason, he's not looking that strong in this early phase of the race, so perhaps saving fuel, maybe, maybe not, but his pace is just nowhere near that guys in front, so he's going backwards if he doesn't arrest this momentum soon.
He had a pretty terrible middle sector on that last lap as well relative to everybody around him. He was the fastest middle sector the last time around was Savage's 36.2, and Will's lap was a 36.9 through that sector, so there's a huge 0.7 of a second chunk gone just like that. But Stenberg's just blazing away out in front at the minute. No real care in the world, and the real combat is going to be, I guess, for the minor steps on the podium out of all of this group, especially in the early going. Be interesting to see how it goes when the pit stops shake out. While this group's battling away, we go back and we have a look. There's another little battle unfolding here. Dane Liccardo's managed to make his way into the top 10, although he did have that little moment nudging Termo, just getting caught out in the braking zone at turn number 8. He's a little bit on the wild side through turn 7 here, and invites Cam Rutledge to have a bit of a go. There's Kalen Duncan and Rhodey having a little battle of their own a bit further back as well. And then back to the Zach Ross, Liam Spencer battle. It's back to 14th and 15th. And a little bit of separation just starting to happen with the top 3 or 4 cars here, Hans. So here's Brenton Foley in 4th. Will Devonish has kicked away from him, who in turn has kicked away. Pete Savage has kicked away from him. So just some gaps starting to slowly open up at the moment.
Yeah, Kurt Stenberg is also out to a 3.5 second lead.
Sorry, Devonish is off the road at turn 2. He's done the same trick that Stenberg did in qualifying, just out-braked himself, not as badly, but it's cost him a big chunk of time to Pete Savage. Now, Brenton Foley will be incentivised by the rather humorous words that are on the underside of that rear wing on the ZB ahead.
Well, you know, if you can read them, that you're close enough to make a move potentially, so...
Foley was close enough there, and he's going to be vulnerable now, and Rosella's going to have him at 6.
I was about to remark, he just took a lot of the track limits there.
We've got Rhodey and I'm trying to think of Duncan, I think, in the Nissan.
Yep.
Both had an incident coming out of turn 3. With Duncan's got a little bit of damage to the side of his car. He had a little bit. He ran wide, had a little bit of an off in front of Rhodey, and they both just had
nowhere for Rhodey to go actually. So,
yep, so here it
Rhodey,
is.
innocent bystander in that one.
So here it is. They got a swing through turn 3, and Duncan got some tyres on the outside there. And they kept pointing the right direction.
Also got Rosella now as well. He's got a good run out of the final corner. He's going to try and go side by side, maybe into turn 1.
Oh, this is
and
a brave
get by
move.
Foley.
Here we go. Got to commit to the inside early, and you've got to be really late on the brakes, and he's done precisely that. Foley's going to hang it around the outside. You can do that. Just got to leave a bit of space, and Rosella had to lift and leave it out there. And there's the Volvo of Wayne Spencer's had a very early pit stop. He's just trying to stay out of the way and mind his own business, but that's allowed Steve Burko to have a go around the outside of Rosella into 2. Also couldn't pull it off, but they're tagging. Yeah, tagging through turn 3.
Burko just lifted the throttle, so no harm, no foul there. Oh, another lag issue for Rosella.
Yeah,
so he's gone backwards.
I was about to have a look at something there, and he's just gone backwards in a heartbeat. So that little heartbeat skip of a moment that he's had on a couple of occasions so far this year has happened at the wrong time, and it coughs him up 2 spots.
Yeah, big shame for Rosella there, but he's able to mount a fight back, I'm sure. And he loses 2 spots in an instant.
Caught right up to the back of Brendan Ross though. We're looking at the rear end of Steve Burko's loose Sim Sport Falcon, and he's trying to put a bit of a move a bit of distance between himself and Brendan Ross before Rosella can get back there and have another go. And look at the space.
We've had Kalen Duncan pull into the pits and retire with that damage, so another retirement.
There you go. So that's 3 on the night, with Wayne Spencer a lap down at the moment, so he'll get that lap back when he passes Duncan's DNF position, which he has done now. Spencer's really got a long way to go if he wants to make a two-stop strategy work. We didn't quite see what happened to Wayne, whether or not he was. He did have a bit of a skirmish and was down the back end of the field, so just have to stay out there, circulate, and get some points, I think. The gap out the front is really exploding at a huge margin here, guys. Stenberg was a full second a lap quicker than Pete Savage last time around, and currently has the best lap of a 27.380, which is a new race lap record, as we mentioned at the top of the broadcast. There is going to be both lap records are going to go tonight, no doubt, and they already have. Now it's going to be a matter of what the new race lap record's going to be, and we've still got a better part of 40 laps to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Stenberg's on a charge right now. He's trying to make hay while the sun's shining and buy himself a bit of an insurance policy if he makes a mistake.
Gives him the freedom of choice as well, of being able to dictate what strategy he elects to come in at, whether he splits it down the middle for 3 equal chunks or runs a little bit long. His last lap there was very, very close to the previous lap that he did as well. Both the last 2 laps consecutive have been 27.7s. Savage has upped his pace a little bit here, but not to the same tune that Kurt Stenberg is at right now. He's still got a little bit of pace to find to even just be matching it with the TTR Commodore at the minute. Foley's still hanging on to P4 here though from Steve Burko. Rosella has moved up to P6, having dispatched of Brendan Ross. And this isn't the final step for the podium, but depending on what happens out front, it may very well be, just given how the race might pan out tonight.
I've been riding on board with Will Devenish, trying to work out why his pace is so, I guess could say off. I'm trying to figure out if he's trying to fuel save or if he's just misdriving the car or if his car's mishandling, but it doesn't look like he's having any issues. It doesn't look like he's fuel saving, at least going by the downshifts and onboards that I've been hearing. So it's just a little odd at this stage that he's running about a 1.5 seconds off his personal best, which is actually faster than Pete Savage is in second, with Devenish's fastest at 27.7, Peter at 27.9. But Will at the moment just in the low 29s, and he's unable to, and high 28s, he's unable to go any faster at the moment. So perhaps he's maybe saving his tyres, or perhaps his setup at the moment, he's not able to either get the tyres up to temperature, because it is a little bit cool at the moment, or perhaps his tyres just out of range with the tyre pressures, and that's why he's a little bit off at the moment. Because the way it's going, he might find himself within striking distance of Foley and Burko if it keeps going the way it's going.
Yeah, we'll have a look at the lap times he's doing now. It was a 29.2 for Will across the line last time out, 29.3 for Foley, 29.2 for Burko. So at the moment they're on similar pace. But you're right there, Lewis. It does sort of wonder what strategy element Will Devenish is at here. Maybe with the lap times that he's doing, he's maybe just not comfortable with the car. I was expecting to see pace from Will probably in the same bracket that Pete Savage is in the... Probably not so much in the low 28s, but probably in the mid 28s if he was going to try and stop sort of around about the lap 19 mark. The pace that Stenberg is going out at, I'm wondering whether he's probably going to come in a little bit earlier, given this the pace that he's blazing along at right now.
I would expect most runners just to tank it up, at least for the first... at the start of the race and at the first pit stop, because when you do run with that more fuel, with the fuel fill rate, later on in the race you're able to have quite a significantly shorter pit stop due to the fuel. So they will be fueled up, I'd imagine, to the brim at the race start. But if he has short fueled, you will see Stenberg probably have slightly longer fuel stops, while we may see if Devenish is going to fuel up, you should see his pit stops, at least the last pit stop in particular, be significantly shorter than, say, Stenberg's, if that's the case.
This could be a long game that we're going to wait to see the back end of. That's the hard part about these longer format races. It does vary the strategy up a little bit. the sprint race format, we know you've got to come in, take a little bit of fuel, get some tyres and get going again as quickly as you can. And we essentially wait for the field to cleanse. With the longer format races such as tonight, we really don't have that luxury until we've seen every driver stop twice.
It's like a mini enduro almost, Steve.
In a degree, I guess it is, isn't it? Because you've got to wait to see how the long game pans out. I mean, if you take like Le Mans, for example, it takes forever and a day to work out where everybody's at. I mean, this is not to that extreme, but in a way, I guess you're right. The enduro, it is a longer format race, so it's a mini enduro in itself. But it's a bit hard for us as sitting in our armchairs here commentating this race to work out where the strategy is going to be. We can only speculate. And something like the Bathurst 500 coming up, we know everybody's got to stop at least 6 times, so you can make a roughly good prediction as to how it's going to go. Whereas this one's a little bit different because you can go longer, you can go shorter, you can split it down the middle. You have into 3 equal sections. You've got a lot of different options at your disposal. It's just about what you feel comfortable with as a driver and how you actually want to approach the race.
Just having a look at Dane Liccardo. He's up in 9th. He's up 7 spots from his starting position. And he's currently in front of Cam Rutledge, but he has made a bit of a mistake, and that's put him back into the clutches of Cam Rutledge a little bit more. And Cam Rutledge, he's also got Termo, the teammate, behind him.
Yep, looking rearward from the Gary Rogers Motorsport Volvo at the moment. Dan Liccardo had a pretty good finish to his Super 2 season. He had a number of good solid results. I think he even got his best result in the very, very short time that he spent racing Super 2 in the last round as well. So very, very pleased with that result. And good to see
he does a lot of
making
racing.
He does some
Dane
racing
Liccardo,
over.
he does a lot of racing as well. He does the ATCC, he did the Super 2. I believe he also does ASC Super 2, and he did actually race in the ASC main game a couple of nights ago on Tuesday night. So he was going pretty solidly in that, and considering they don't run any assists, that is very good practice for young Dane to get a wriggle on. Oh, makes a bit of a mistake, lock brake there, brings him into the clutches of Cam Rutledge a little bit more. But he's going good, the young bloke at the moment.
Yeah, doing pretty well to hold on to a top 10 position ahead
Oh,
of...
Burko!
Pre-season
He had a
veteran.
massive slide on the exit of turn 1.
Yeah, and that's
That
left
will-
him vulnerable to Rosella down the inside at turn 2, and that's the pass job done for Luke Rosella. That's all the incentive that he needed. And I think Rosella was
that on
lining
replay.
him.
That looks
Yeah,
good.
we are having a look at this now. I thought Rosella was a little bit closer to try and line him up into turn 1, but he just really had to bide his time here. Oh, he got it on the curb. He got the inside on the curb, got a swapper on, did really well to save it. That's a very, very good save from Steve Burko, but just that little mistake was enough of an incentive for Rosella to seize P5 away. And now he's going to try and set his sights on the back of Brenton Foley, is the number 5 AAR Volvo S60.
Good presence of mind from Luke Rosella there, not to get involved in it. And also, great save from Burko. I can only imagine what was on his race radio. To be a fly on the wall with his engineer, that would be interesting.
Oh, absolutely. Just starting to see here, Lewis, that Will has started to up his pace a little bit in the number 15, and the last couple of laps he'd done some pretty nice mid-28s, but he's now just dropped back into the 29s this lap gone, so the pace is there. I'm just wondering whether he's probably playing with a few bar settings, front and rear anti-roll bars, or moving the brake bias around just to see if he can find something that works at this particular juncture of the race.
Yeah, I reckon early on, either he was perhaps even just driving to a fuel number to try and get to, maybe he wants to go a little bit past lap 20, so that last pit stop is, going to take on a lot less fuel. Or maybe it's a combination of, saving a little bit of fuel and the car just wasn't quite underneath him, and in the last couple of laps he's made a change to the bars. Perhaps he had a bit of oversteer and just wanted to drive it a bit straighter, so he's maybe stiffened the front bars up a little bit, or maybe softened up the rears a little bit as well. I have to jump down, listen to some team radio, and see how he's travelling with that, because it is a little bit mystifying at the moment that early on he was quite a bit slower than the front two, and then the last few laps he's been able to match or been just slightly faster than Peter in front of him.
Now, Lewis, I would hazard a guess that perhaps Will Devonish, he hasn't set his car up to be perfect at the start of a stint. It actually comes to him later in the stint. So let's see if you can confirm that.
Yeah, it will be interesting. So keep an eye out for that one.
Will do. And just getting some word through as well, the reason for Caelan Duncan's not retirement in this race was not by any fault of his own. Looks like he's had a bit of wheel trouble and disconnecting from the race itself, so that's why he's out of this one. Now, Burko and Rosella have been having a little scrap through the last couple of corners. That's allowed Brenton Foley to escape, and it's also brought Brendan Ross onto the battle here. Nice slide from Burko through turn 2. He's starting to get really tail happy here. I'm wondering, coming back to your comments beforehand about setting up the car for Will Devonish to be better at the beginning at the end of a stint rather than the beginning, whether Burko's gone the opposite way or he hasn't picked up that he needs to make a bit of a settings change here, because Brendan Ross is now through.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of roll oversteer characteristics going into Burko's car. It does look a little bit soft at the rear end, so maybe he's had a bit of a play with the anti-roll bar. Sometimes when you do run a bit too soft on the rear anti-roll bar, what happens is that the roll tendency in the rear of the car actually makes the car oversteer. And a roll oversteer is actually better than a sort of snap oversteer effect, and that's why he's able to capture it. So perhaps putting a bit too much load on the outside rear wheel. And now that we're playing amateur setup guys, amateur setup gurus, but Brendan Ross, he's locking brakes as well, so Rossi's perhaps struggling as well, as we can see how Luke Rosella has gapped him, and Burko, he's dropping heap way off Brendan Ross just in the final corner.
Yeah, look at the time too, 1:30.8. That's by far and above his worst lap of the race to date. And look at the driving lines he's taking as well. He's getting hung up on the curb on turn 1. We know that Burko likes a pretty loose race car in the rear. He likes to sort of skate it in a little bit, likes a little bit of flexibility in the rear end of the car to be able to swing it round on point. I think we've seen some of his setups, and like the steering lock, I think, is miles up, like 26 degrees or something. It's something ridiculously high.
Yeah, he likes it very twitchy.
It's very twitchy. It's a very pointed race car to drive, but I mean, the longer distance race, you kind of don't want to sort of to do that type of thing. I'm a bit worried for you now, because you guys are paired in the Bathurst 500.
Yeah.
You're going to have to work out how best to sort this out.
Yeah, funnily enough, we've discussed that. I'm completely opposite. I run very little steering lock, and I actually run a lot of rotation, and he runs no rotation and a lot of steering lock. So just seeing a bit of a lock up there. I think that was Rosella making a lock up. It wasn't Ross, but Burko, he likes the car very opposite setup. So we're trying to convert him to my driving style, because over a longer stint at Bathurst, I think it will be a bit better. Yeah,
I probably tend to agree. You've got to find a compromise with your teammate as to what's going to work overall for the race. Have a look at Burko on the season as well. He got his best result last time out as well, 4th place at the Hamilton 200 round. And then we have a look at everything else. He started to bring some of that Super 2 form across to Supercars. Most of his results, he's had a 5th, aside from the 4th at Hamilton, there was a 5th at Townsville. There was 3 6ths on the season, a pair of 6ths at the Calder Park round, going all the way back to a 6th in the second race at Simmons, sorry, not that one there, a 6th at the second race at Pukekohe, and there's a pair of 7ths in there as well. So pretty much since the second race at Pukekohe, outside of one DNF for the first Barbagallo race of a two race round, he's been a consistent top 10 finisher, so his performance has definitely gone up a notch since not only being at the top end of Super 2, but he started to really improve his driving. And that's another one of the things this year. We mentioned it last time out at Hamilton. A number of drivers in this field have really started to improve their driving overall. This is another driver here, Cam Rutledge. He's definitely improved in terms of his ultimate pace and the lap times that he's been doing relative to last year, if you put him in similar machinery, just that his pace has sort of been masked by a number of guys that have found a lot more pace than what he has.
Yeah, Cam's been a quiet achiever. He's been helped with his setups by Will Devonish. Will Devonish, he has a very unique driving style. He prefers the car to be a bit oversteery, but Cam Rutledge, he's been solidly performing. I've seen some of the practice sessions they do, and Will does give big helping hand to Cam Rutledge. So good to see one of the Pro B runners. He's doing very well at the moment. He's running solidly in 10th. He's up 3 spots from his starting position. So not that good in qualifying, but he is coming good in the race, Cam Rutledge. And we also see him in a number of series as well, performing well.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. He does a bit of ATCC as well. I've just seen the race leaders starting to go past a bit of lap traffic, so Rhodey has now been
Lion
lapped.
Mitch in the pits.
And
Sorry, Steve.
I was about to say, it's a good segue because I was actually having a bit of a look to see whether or not we actually had any takers on pit lane, whether Rhodey had actually come in, but no, he was genuinely lapped. This is the first of the lap of the genuine pit stops, and right on the end of lap 17. So for the Lion Mitch, this is looking like a strategy of breaking it up into 3 equal parts, and very much on par to be doing that. So interesting to see where he feeds out. Liam Spencer goes through, and so too is Zach Ross, and the race leader is just coming around the final corner onto the main straight now, and he looks like he is continuing on. Yes, he is. Has now only just started dropping into the 29s.
Peter's in the pits, and Will also jumping in the pits, and Burko, his pit crew, getting ready as well.
All right, so pit stop sequence is starting to pan out. Here they all come. Burke, Pete Savage, Will Devonish. Devonish had made up a bit of time on Pete Savage after all of that, so he's had a very good in-lap, Will Devonish. Pete Savage's in-lap was a 1.1 seconds slower, so there is a gain made there. That'll push Foley, Rosella,
Steve
Brendan Ross
Burko
up
in the pits as
temporarily.
well. So Steve Burko's just passed into the pits as well. So these 3 guys, they might come out pretty much close together at this stage. I think Will actually was helped along a little bit by being up behind Pete. He was able to brake a lot later.
Or Will's was very close to jumping Pete Savage in the lane there. Got out of the pit box a lot earlier, so better stop for Will Devonish, but he's going to be right under the back of Pete Savage's 88 here. So very, very good in-lap for Will Devonish. Very, very good stop by the team. And now he's in prime position to have a red-hot go at Pete Savage. You were commenting that maybe Will was masking his pace, Lewis, but he was maybe just seeing how the car came on at the back end of a stint, and it looks like that was probably correct because he's made some very, very good gains in the last couple of laps leading up to the stops and now out of pit lane.
Yeah, I was able to have a quick chat with him a few laps ago, and yeah, that was one of the things that he mentioned was that first main issue he had was he's actually quite hot in his room at the moment, and he forgot to put his fan on, so he's a bit all hot and sweaty. And I think Hans was the one that sort of guesstimated that he may have a setup which isn't quite good early on in a stint, and it comes better as the fuel burns off, and he can and will confirm the case that's the case, where it's not so good with a full tank, but when a fuel burns off, it's actually quite handy, as we've seen.
I've just noticed, Steve, that Wayne Spencer has actually retired from the race on lap 14, so we'll have a look what's happened here. This is a recent development, just trying to put my finger on it, what's happened, running through the replay. But disaster for Wayne Spencer, so that leaves one Spencer in the field.
Yeah, it means there's only one Volvo left in the field, two Volvos left in the field in the hands of Luke Rosella and Dane Liccardo. I'm wondering whether Spencer's had a little bit of an issue somewhere and needed to retire the car from some damage. Well, Will Devonish maybe is trying to see if he can match Pete Savage here, because he was very, very close through turn 1, but just had to release the accelerator pedal a little bit earlier to avoid washing off the road, and is now in prime position to have a real red hot go at Savage here. Race leader looks like he's come into the pits. So Stenberg is in at lap 19, end of lap 19.
So
and
Wayne
Foley
Spencer.
and Foley is in. Zach Ross, Rutledge, and Liam Spencer are in, and Foley and Rosella go through.
Brody will be in the pits as well this lap. Hopefully he gets down to the speed limit. We've seen in the Super 2 round, he actually exceeded the speed limit by a lot, Lewis, if you remember.
I have completely forgot.
Yep, here he is. He's in the lane at the moment. Rhodey just coming in and back a shot. I'm just keeping an eye on him and the lane. Kurt Stenberg is going to come out behind some traffic in...
We've had Devonish get by Peter as well on this lap, so
yep.
a move has taken place.
Yep, he has done that, and Stenberg's just leaving the lane now, so he's just around turn 1, so he's got pretty much the full front straightaway, Kurt Stenberg, and he's got the benefit of about 2 or 3 laps newer tyres.
Wayne Liccardo, he's coming into the pits. Just on the point of Wayne Spencer, he's actually gone off the road at turn 1, and for whatever reason, he couldn't get the car back onto the road, so it just went straight onto the grass, and he just exited from the race. So bad luck for Wayne Spencer there.
Yeah, hard luck for Wayne Spencer. Father and son, Wayne and Liam Spencer, we believe are still teaming up for the Bathurst 500. That'll actually be 2 sets of fathers and sons teaming up for the 500 with the Turras, Noah and Greg teaming up as well.
What better father-son activity could you think of as entering an endurance race?
Well, the only other one that I can think of coming close to is something that one of my fellow work colleagues does, and he takes his son's go-kart racing. They actually have go out and compete at some of the national titles, and I believe his sons are actually quite good. Working for a transport company, it's very easy to organise transport of go-karts all over the country.
That obviously reduces the cost. Brandon Ross and Luke Roselli in the pits now.
All right, so with one more...
Foley goes one more lap.
So Foley's done pretty well here to get 21 laps out of a tank of fuel, so he's really playing the long game. Stenberg will be trying to round Liam Spencer up before turn 1. Spencer makes it pretty easy for him, gives him the preferred racing line.
Another thing to bring up about that fuel mileage, if there's a safety car in this second sequence of the race between now and you could say maybe even lap 37, he may be able to just one stop this race if he's able to save enough fuel behind that safety car, because he's gone that long. All he's going to need is a fairly long safety car, 5 laps. He should be able to save almost a lap each time around, and he'll be very, very close to being able to one stop this race.
Yeah, that's a fair comment there. Depending on how far he can go, it looks like he might be coming in now. I would have thought he might have needed to get maybe another lap or 2 out of it, but here he comes. So he's got 21 laps on a tank of fuel. So if he does this again, that'll be lap 42 we probably expect to get him in.
Ooh.
Or big lock up before the line. There'll be
It looked like he exceeded the pit lane speed limit, but hopefully not for Foley. He's done a good job.
Yep. Keep an eye on him for that one. That will then
Interesting.
hand the race lead back to Kurt Stenberg.
Lewis,
go on, Hans.
Yeah, sorry. Interesting point you make, Lewis, that Foley, if there is a safety car, he will potentially could make it on a one-stop strategy. But I think it is a matter of diminishing returns for him, because as the field gets more spread out, it becomes increasingly unlikely that the safety car will come out.
That is true, but this is motor racing. At Sydney Motorsport Park, there are places where you have seen people on their own just end up in the fence, and there's a couple of blind corners as well. Or if a car goes off the road, another car can come around the corner and hit him. So, like turn 7, if a car ends up over there and runs into another, there's a potential spot for a safety car. But also on the Devonish and Peter battle, I did go back and have a look to see what happened there. At turn 8 at the hairpin, Peter just outbraked himself by a little bit, locked his front right, couldn't turn it in, and that was all Will Devonish needed to get up into P2.
So Foley exits the pit lane, comes out in 5th place behind Rosella, but ahead of Burko. Now, Foley and Rosella were relatively close together for a little bit, so Rosella's made a net gain through the pit stop sequence and has come out with a nice little advantage, somewhere around about 2.5 seconds. And now Foley's under pressure from Burko, who will have tyres that are already well and truly up to temperature and up to pressure. And if he's going to make the most of it while Foley's on cold rubber, the time is now to launch himself up into 5th place. Getting a little bit of word coming through on the live stream. Good to see some nice comments on a few things. Daniel Cox has come up with a very interesting word or pair of words for the issue with Will Devonish being in a pool of sweat and not having his fan running. He's labelled it down to a failed cool suit, which I find was very, very clever. And we're getting back to the dad jokes. Your good friend Kristen here, Hans, has said apparently the Melbourne show is going to be online this year. The only roller coaster she's riding are emotional ones. So the dad jokes are already starting to drop in again.
I wouldn't know anything about that.
No?
No, not at all. Whatever she's talking about, I've got no idea.
Neither do I. I went to the Royal Melbourne Show last year, the first time we took our daughter to the Royal Melbourne Show, and I mean, you can you can hazard a guess as to the one thing that she made a beeline for. It was anything to do with the wiggles. So it's one of the joys of being a father, is you get to learn about all these things that your children like, but you never got to see as a kid.
Yeah, one of the joys of being a father, when the old Wiggles, when we were kids, it was the old Wiggles. Now it's a bunch of other people. So we've got no idea what's happening there either, but all we know is that there is a race happening right now. And
no, that's right.
Kurt Stenberg is about 10 seconds in front. Oh, he's just come up on the back of Zach Ross, and he had his lights on for a second, so probably accidentally flicked the switch. And that gap is sort of stabilising. Oh, Kurt Stenberg has just done his fastest lap that time round, so 1:27.29.
Yeah, he's lowered that by about a tenth and a little bit. So it was at 27.3. It was at 27.320. It's now at 27.296. And the lap traffic's making it easy for him here as well. Margin now out to 10.2 seconds. It was about 8.9 after the pit stop sequence, but it's ballooned back out again. So what do we make of this on the pit strategy here, gentlemen? We've got Stenberg has gone out to lap 20. Devonish has gone to about lap 17, 18. So Stenberg's probably been able to save enough in the fuel pot to cover off a shorter stop from somebody like Will at the back end of this race, barring, of course, any mistakes. He's got a nice little chunk of time in his pocket right now.
Yeah, it looks like the pit strategies, it's going to be basically run the tank till it's empty and go again, because that seems to be the majority strategy at the moment. Dane Liccardo, he's just yielding to Kurt Stenberg, and Cam Rutledge has gotten in front of Liccardo again. So Rutledge up to 10th, Liccardo back to 11th, but he is still a fair way up from where he started, young Dane.
Yeah, doing very well still. He's just on the outside of the top 10, so he's lost a bit of track position coming through the pit stop sequence, and whether that was a damage repair or something, he needs to sort that out. Cam Rutledge now, I guess, the cork in the champagne bottle for Kurt Stenberg to just negotiate. And then there's a bit of time up the road to Termo and then Lime Mitch, and then they'll sort of be the last runners that'll be on probably going to be on the lead lap, so on the one lap down by the time we get to the end of this race, if it keeps going the way that it is. That little bit of negotiating the traffic for Kurt Stenberg has actually allowed these two guys to get a bit close together again. So Liccardo's having a little look here at Cam Rutledge, and that is on the approach to turn 6.
Pretty wild ding-dong battle between these two, because it is like an accordion. They just catch up to each other once again.
Cam's
Rutledge makes a bit of mistake, locks it up,
open.
goes a bit wide, and Liccardo opens the door for him. Well, that could have looked a little bit Mark Scaife and Russell Ingall-like, but these two guys, they can drive in a straight line. Thank you very much.
Very good pass, gentlemen. And oh, look at this, Liccardo. Oh, very loose as well, and very, very lucky that Cam didn't try and resend the move at the final corner there as well. So Liccardo gets away with that one there, but very, very good little battle between these guys.
Can't fault the young bloke. He's having a go.
No, he definitely can't, and he definitely wants that top 10 finish. And right now he's tracking quite nicely for that.
These two keep battling. They'll bring Zach Ross into the battle. Oh, Zach Ross, he's had the big tank slapper on. Mid part of the corner. I'll just have a look at that in the replay again, because we all like a big tank slapper.
Rutledge has gone deep at turn 2 as well now. So that's put Zach Ross right on the back of Cam Rutledge.
Funnily enough, Zach Ross, he did the exact same thing that Steve Burko did. Just got it hung up on the curb, bit too much gas, and the thing just did a swapper on him.
Here he goes.
So he's lucky to catch that.
Through he goes. Whee! Have a look at that. There's the fistful of opposite lock on the slow-mo. And a nice trail of smoke going there as well. Good car control from Zach Ross.
We've had, sorry to cut you off, we've had Brendan Ross get by Burko in the last couple of laps. They were battling, but Burko ran a little bit wide. at turn 2, and that allowed Brendan Ross to get by. I've also had, since the pit stops, Brenton Foley's got his foot down, and he's starting to close ever so slightly onto the back of Luke Rosello, who will have to worry just a little bit that if Foley gets close by, he will have a shorter final pit stop by a considerable margin. So Rosella is going to have to pull a little bit of time out, because when the pit stops come, he's going to be putting in a little bit more extra fuel in than Brenton Foley. He did go very, very long by about, I think it was a lap or two over Rosella.
Yeah, he's going to be vulnerable through the pit stop sequence.
Now, the issue is with Rosella, his pace seems to have stabilised. He's very firmly in the 28s, but I think the issue for him is that he's not quite catching Peter ahead. And in fact, I believe that if Foley just stays relatively close behind him like he is now, he is going to be a chance to get past him if they do pit again. So, unfortunately, Luke Rosella, I mean, we always say this kid is dynamite. He did win the race at Hamilton, but not that good today, unfortunately, for Luke Rosella.
There's still a solid P4 at the moment, though, but Lewis is right. He's going to have to get his foot down and start putting a margin ahead of Brenton Foley, because in about 12 or 13 laps' time, he's going to find himself behind the PBF Commodore if he's not careful. Just having a bit of a look, I did notice on the live timing that Pete Savage had actually racked up a track cut on one of his previous occasions, and he's actually racked up two. One back on lap 23 and another on lap 25. So out of the allowable curb strikes that are left, he only has one more, and then he's on a final warning. So he's got to be very careful. The last ones that he got, lap 23, it was in sector 3, so probably at the part of the circuit that he's at right now, just on the outside there. And then 2 laps later, he was done in sector 2, which will be probably at turn 5.
Now, I'm just having a look at Burko's live stream, and he looks like he's struggling. He's actually struggling a lot. He's nearly 2 seconds down, and he's only just getting to the second sector mark almost. So, big dramas for Burko. It's not going well for him.
Setup change maybe gone the wrong way there, Lewis.
And as we say that, Lewis just jumps out of the chat.
He's gone off to, I think he's gone off to investigate what's going on, I think. Even he is essentially the principal, the team principal for Loose Sim Sport. He's probably gone off to find out what's going on. Yeah, look at Burko's time there, 31.6 on that last lap. Miles off what his best is for 28.4. So that's... so I don't know whether something's gone wrong in the setup change here, or whether as the time wears on in this race and the track conditions change, given it is going into a twilight essentially race, going into dusk, you can see the time changing and the sky changing in the background, whether or not track conditions, albeit that they're rubbered up, are actually cooling down a little bit here. So the setup is just not where it needs to be right now.
Cool, Devnish, he's coming up on lap traffic of Zach Ross and Dan Liccardo, who they're in a pretty wild battle at the moment, so they need to be careful to let Devonish through and make it a bit easier for him.
Well, Zach Ross has had a pretty good turn of speed since Cam Rutledge is another one of those drivers that's gone a little bit backwards through this particular phase of the race, and Zach Ross seems to have come on strong. Both these guys are doing 31s, but Dane just seems to have a little bit less pace aboard compared to Zach Ross, but Devonish will want to clear this pair very, very quickly. Gap to the lead is 13.5 seconds. Where are they going to let him through is the next question.
I'd say that Dane is actually holding Zach Ross up, but they need to get a move along. Will's just caught them at the wrong time, so they need to jump out of the way ASAP. They jump both ways, it seems.
Yeah, Zach Ross
will
has let him go
straight through the middle.
And I dare say Will probably get Liccardo on the run up to turn 8 here. Now, if Zach Ross is smart here, he just needs to hang on to Will's coattails, and there might be a wedge formed down at turn 8. And yep, passing move being made here at turn 8. Dane leaves a bit of room. And Zach Ross arrives a bit late on the scene, a bit too late to take full advantage of that opportunity.
Will probably lost a couple seconds in that.
Yeah, definitely. We'll get probably a full readout when he gets across the line this time around. It's 14.2 through sector 1, after sector 2. and he lost about a half a second through sector 1 because of being caught up by the lap traffic. I say that's going to balloon out to about 15 seconds. No, actually, in fact, it only ballooned out by another 2/10 in lap in the third sector there, so it wasn't all really too terrible in the third sector. Damage was done in the first half of the lap, though.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess it just shows the importance of the lap traffic getting out of the way early. And when you do catch up to lap traffic in the middle section of the circuit, it is very difficult for that lap traffic to get out of the way. So Devonici moves on, and he's looking for a good result here.
Been a bit of contact. Zach Ross just giving a little bit of a Morse code nudge on the back of Dane Liccardo on the run down to turn number 4. No harm, no foul. They get away with it, but it would have been a bit of a hairy moment for Dane Liccardo. And now Pete Savage is closing in on this pair as well. He's got the headlights on to remind them that he is on a lead lap and to get out of his way.
Hopefully they're a little bit more coordinated this time. So makes it a bit easier for Pete Savage. Another West Australian Pete Savage as well as Kurt Stenberg. So the West Australian runners, they're very well represented. I believe Zach Ross as well.
Yep,
West
correct.
Australian.
They are, so they're not doing too badly, the West Australians at the moment. You know, sometimes it's a bit difficult with the differences in time for them to come and join us sometimes, but we do appreciate when they can make it. Now, Zach Ross has decided, think about having a go here at Dane Liccardo ahead of this battle, and Dane's left him some space, but now it's left Zach very, very vulnerable. Can Savage get the pair of them into turn 2? The answer to that is yes. Very smart driving from these guys. They'll just probably stay line astern and try and tack on to the back of Pete Savage as he drives away from them.
On a masterclass, just tack onto the back of Pete Savage and he'll show you the lines around here.
Yeah, very, very quick man as well. Zach Ross is still getting very racy. We're going to cycle back and have a look at this because this is where one of the really interesting battles is at the minute. Most of the stuff up front is sort of very much settled at the moment. But it's all about the loose Sim Sport Monster Energy Falcon versus the Gary Rogers Motorsport Volvo S60. And here it is, and behind them, Cam Rutledge has now started to rejoin this battle. And I think you're right here, Hans. Dane is probably a little bit slower than Zach Ross. You can see the Falcon behind just twitching and jumping sideways as he tries to apply the power coming out of turn 8. Needs to get a good run here though. Does he look at the inside? No, he's going to try and set him up for the run through the final corner. Just needs to time it. Get on the power at the right time. Now he's got a good run. Here we go, on board with the pilot of the number 87. Going to be a move into turn 1? No, backs out of it. Wasn't far enough alongside. Maybe just a distraction there. Half-hearted lunge, pulled out of it, went back again. Got a tank swap on yet again.
And he's into turn 2. Will he do it?
No.
Oh, lock brake.
Lock brake from Liccardo as well.
Possible to do it. It's possible to send it down at turn 2, and it's probably an opportune move to do it. Just set it up for turn 2. And Zach, he's got a big battle on his hands here.
Yeah, Dane Liccardo racing very, very hard, but very, very fair. And look at this behind him. Now it's the CRE cars getting to it. Not only Cam Rutledge, but Liam Spencer's joined this battle as well. So this is not only a battle between teammates over 12th and 13th, but they're going to be here to pick up the scraps if something goes wrong between Ross and Liccardo right now.
Oh, Liam Spencer's around.
Spencer around. That resolves one of the little pressure points that was going on there. And I think he's got Rosella coming through as well, which will have to give him a little bit of space, which he does. And I think he's done that all those. And I think he's just got hung up on the curb coming through turn 6. It is a bit of a tricky curb. You don't want to take too much of that curb. Let's keep an eye on what happens to the number 4. And
Gap much coming off the curb.
No, just to try to apply the power a little bit too aggressively. I think he was already well and truly off the curb, but just couldn't apply the power at the right time. Now, does Zach Ross have another go into turn 1? Liccardo's gone the defensive line. Going to make Zach Ross go the long way around turn 1. But if Zach Ross can time it right, he'll be in a good position to send it down the inside at turn 2. And
That could have been a really big accident there. Like Liccardo, he started sliding on the very exit of turn 1.
Must say it's very good defensive driving from Dane Liccardo at the minute. Very, very solid, not changing lines aggressively, making Zach Ross earn every bit of this pass.
The place that Liccardo is weakest is under brakes, so Zach perhaps needs to think with his think a bit smart here and actually try and make a move under brakes, because Dane Liccardo is not as strong. But the exits, Dane Liccardo is actually very strong coming out of the exits, so no shortage of mumbo in a straight line from the old Ovlov.
What I think is helping the cause here for Liccardo is have a look at the attitude of the Zach Ross Falcon on corner exit. As Zach applies the power, the rear end gets really twitchy. Let's see if it happens here. Just watch the car jump sideways. If it jumps sideways a little bit, not on that particular occasion, but there's a number of corners.
I think he's too eager. He's trying to crack the throttle when the car won't do it. Long corners will tend to do that to these cars.
Yeah, you've got to be very, very careful when he applies the power. Now looking for a different line, tight line, but Liccardo's aware of it and covers it off. But yeah, just some of these wrong opportunities where he's thinking that he's got an advantage and tries to jump on the power to make it happen. Now's the opportunity. Oh, he's bump drafting down the straight. Gave him a little bit of a nudge in a straight line there. That's not the way to do it.
Pretty interesting time to do it.
Oh, another
And
slide.
again, another slide for Zach Ross. He needs to send it under brakes here, and he's just not close enough. He just needs to be a bit calmer on the front straight. And he's up beside him. That's not the way to do it. Turn 3, that's going to be a bit brave. He'll have to yield.
He's going to be vulnerable to Cam Rutledge here if he's not careful, because he's leaving the door open plenty of Zach Ross. Is the send on at turn 4? Now the send's on at turn 4, but he's got to commit. He's got to just open the steering a little bit. Get him out wide. That's the way. Done. Got the job
Probably
done.
took he would have liked, but in the end he's got there, and he's got a massive tank slapper on again. So not the handling of the car is looking quite poor at the moment, if I may say so myself. Lewis?
Yeah, I think we're not going to be using those rears in a test day anytime soon. I think they're going straight to the bin after this stint. So he's been sideways everywhere.
So here's the move from Zach Ross. You'll see him just evoke into the side of the screen. There it is. And got across and got the block on. So just did the right thing. Opened the steering there on the exit of turn 4 when he had the gap to do so. And it just stopped Liccardo having any sort of momentum to come back at him at turn 5.
Perhaps you're going to donate the set of rear tyres to
sorry guys, Liccardo's lost another position here. He's gone too wide at the final corner, and Rutledge was well and truly alongside, so he had to let that position go. But now they've also got the Volvo of Luke Rosella behind them that they're going to have to allow through too.
We've had our first man in the pits as well. My Mitch in the pits. Also got Peter coming in the pits. He's struggling quite a bit in that stint, and as the race has gone on, he's not quite happy with the balance of his car, and he's happy just to get to the end here.
Well, we called that one pretty early, I think, that for Lime Mitch, that he was stopped at lap 17. He's now stopped, well, he's actually stopped on lap 33 this time, so he hasn't gone to lap, he's on lap 34 now, so he's going to have to do probably a little bit of fuel saving to get home from here on full tank.
Did you get any information on what's happening with Steve Burko's car?
Yeah, he's another one that's really unhappy with this
drive-through penalty. Sorry, guys. Drive-through penalty for Pete Savage, speeding on pit lane.
Well, that's going to make it an interesting final few laps, because he's going to have to push pretty hard to make up that time. We'll have a fresh set of tyres, but we'll kill his race.
Yeah, that's going to put him down probably around the Luke Rosella, Brenton Foley battle by the time that this is all done. Pit lane transit time about 20 seconds or so.
Yeah, he was, I'm just going on the replay, he was about 35 Ks over when he got to the line.
Ooh.
When I had a look at Foley early on, there is a bit of a, there's a leniency, but Foley was able to slow it down enough afterwards, and it didn't penalise him, while unfortunately for Peter, he was going too quick, and that cost him. As you see, Brent Foley into the pits, and we also got Will Devonish, his pit crew, getting ready as well. But this is going to be the crucial stop for Foley, whether he can jump Rosella, and he almost threw it into the wall on pit entry there. So he's pushing very, very hard, almost threw it all the way.
Yeah, I think with the pit lane tolerances, you're right, Lewis. There's only, I think, about 2 or 3K allowance, but 35K allowance is absolutely massive. Let's have a look at this pit entry from Brenton Foley, actually. Let's see if he... Very aggressive on the entry, and he's getting it stopped, but... Oh, that's close. Let's have a look at that from the onboard. That was extremely close to the pit lane wall. Have a look at this look how narrow this is, gents. This is, wow.
There's a nice set of 11s on the run into that, and if you have a look on board from the top, there is millimetres in it between the front left fender.
Oh, and he's been given a penalty too.
Well.
So he didn't get it stopped in time. So that's a terrible outcome for Brenton Foley. It's just flashed up on your screen there. He's also got a drive-through penalty. I'm sure Lewis will go back and have a look at that one to see how he was before the line, or whether he's maybe released the limiter a bit too early. But
I reckon that's for the entry. I don't think that's for the exit. There's a set of cones on the exit, and oh yeah, he is over by 40 kilometers per hour.
Wow.
So both Peter and Foley trying to outdo each other. Foley had a warning though the first time he came into the pits a bit too hot and got away with it. Didn't heed that warning, almost hit the wall, but he's got himself a nice drive through. So that's going to be great for Brendan Ross, not so for Brenton Foley.
no, it'll be good for Pete Savage as well, though, because he's been in to serve his drive-through penalty. And, I mean, he's a lap down at the minute, but we expect that will then switch back the other way. What was set to be Peter ending up in a battle with Foley and Rosella is now going to be Foley dropping out of that battle, and now just be probably Pete and Luke Rosella by the time all this goes on. So that could be a battle for the last step on the rostrum at the minute.
And
Will, what is
going on?
That is
Unbelievable.
everybody getting done on pit lane for pit lane speeding. So this is just giving Kurt Stenberg a free kick out in front. All he's got to do here is just stop appropriately before the marks, and he can stop now and get home. So there's not an issue there. But you're right, stopping before the line as it gets later in the race, I don't know, what is it? Is a bit of complacency here, guys? What do we put this down to?
Stopping way too late. They're not getting down to the appropriate speed limit. Perhaps they're seeing the 60km/h sign, and they're, I mean, I hate to say it, but you always check the pit lane speed limit, what your speed limiter is, not what the sign says.
And on top of
It's
that,
going to be close between Burko and Foley, but I did have a look at what Will Devenish did. I don't think he pressed the button, because he got down to about 45 at the line, so he was within that tolerance range where he would have been okay, but then he hit the accelerator and sped up to 50 kilometers an hour for a good 15 or 10 meters. I don't think he's pressed the pit lane speed limiter button there, and it's going to cost him dearly.
Errors on pit lane.
Sorry, Steve, I've just had word through as well that Thomas McMillan, he's actually just done this to clear his penalty, so he's not really put his heart in it in this race. So he's just done it to clear his penalty, allegedly.
All right, that's interesting to note. I would like you to take a bit of a screenshot of that if you can, please, because that's now evidence and reviewable. There was a comment from Brian Walsh a little bit earlier in the live stream saying that what he did was possibly one way to clear a penalty. So that will then be debated now that is on public record. That will then be debated post-race, no doubt, and we'll see how that goes. If that is the case, then that is a very, very disappointing. And probably, I think enough can be said about that. Now, Will Devenish has been in to serve his penalty. As a result of serving that penalty, he's come out with some lap traffic directly ahead of Dane Liccardo. And
Peter's done his best lap. He's going to close the gap up. Obviously, it's status quo now. They've both done drive-throughs, but Peter actually did his best lap last time out at 27.7. And he'll be hoping he can maintain that while Will's stuck behind lap traffic.
Yeah.
Steve, I should give you a bit of a caveat to that. Brian Walsh texted me saying that, so that's just his guess.
Right. Sorry, my
not
bad.
certain, but it wouldn't be surprising if it was the case, because you'd rather clear your penalty now than ever. But not sure, because McMillan has had issues with his shifter in the past, so. I mean, it could go either way here, but I would be perhaps leaning towards the abruptness of McMillan's retirement. I would say that is probably another issue for him, another technical issue.
Yeah, well, if that is the case, I do apologise if it did sound like for a minute that maybe that was on public record somewhere else, but now you've cleared that up, so I appreciate clearing that up, but I would hate to think that is the reason for just doing a half a lap just to clear a penalty. It's sort of... it's a waste of a night if you think about it in that fashion, just to show up, just to do that thing. I mean, you serve no purpose by sort of doing it so well. It'll be interesting to see what that is.
Traffic jam in the pit lane. Sorry, Steve, I'll cut you off again. Traffic jam in the pit lane. Zach Ross, Rhodey, and Cam Rutledge.
Ross is going to lose out to Liccardo after their spirited battle as well. He's going to be quite a ways behind.
Rhodey toured the grass coming out of pit lane. What on earth happened there?
Just decided to get out of Zach Ross's way, but
Wasn't he on pit road?
he was on pit road. So.
He was exiting the pit. That'll probably be a post-race penalty because he's crossed the lines there and you can't do that. So
can't do that.
Well, here we go. So he was ahead. He was behind Cam Rutledge and ahead of Zach Ross, but he was a lap down. So what happened here? Did he just get it wrong, or?
No, I think he's just done that purposely to let Zach through. So
yeah, that's not good. And on top of that, it probably Pete Savage probably would have had conniptions seeing that car across the grass as well. I think that's a little bit of a dangerous act. So I think you probably called that spot on, Lewis. That probably will be looked at post-race for that one. Expecting our race leader possibly will be in this lap, end of lap 40. He can comfortably make it home from here. And Luke Rosella and Brendan Ross, the only other cars yet to stop.
Bit of bumping going on between Spencer, Liccardo, Zach Ross, Cam Rutledge. They've all come together at the wrong time, and geez, the battle is pretty wild at the moment. And Spencer, he's going to lose a spot to Liccardo, and they're bumping on the main straight.
This was interesting, Hans, because remember Spencer was behind that group of cars and had that spin, so he's really had a good run through the last couple of laps and through the pit stop sequence, and now he's really got his elbows out, so he's recovered extremely well from that moment probably about 6 or 7 laps ago, and he's got room on the inside here. That's a little bit of, I hate to call that one, that's a little bit of aggressive defence, but a number of drivers have now decided to put their lights on. I mean, they don't need to run the lights, but a number of them have decided to do so.
I've had word from the All-Australian Racers camp. There's been a bit of a fan issue in Rosella's car, so he's starting to cook a little bit at the moment. He's also had a bit of team radio with his engineer, who, quote-unquote, has been told to get good and just suck up the heat issues there.
Yeah, spot on there, Lewis. There's probably nothing better that a race engineer could say. It's short and sweet, gets to the point, get good. Don't worry about which sector you're good in and which sector you're bad in. Just get good. And, spot on with the race engineering group there.
Just seen Rhodey do a little bit of a half pirouette coming out of turn 8 behind this battle. I thought Spencer was going to have a little bit of a go at Liccardo going into turn 8. Maybe gave a little bit of Morse code, but wasn't quite close enough at the end of the day. Zach Ross fancies a move on the CRE electrical ZB Commodore into turn 1.
We've got Brendan Ross who's just pitted. He's exited the pits just out in front of Peter, so that's going to be a spirited battle for the... Probably, it won't be the final spot, or it will be the final spot on the podium, I think, with Rosella away.
Rosella taking the pits now.
Yeah, well, this will be the key one for Luke Rosella to find out where he feeds into the battle. Now, did he get it stopped in time? It looks like he was pretty close. Lewis will have to go back and confirm that one. I'm now really sort of crossing my fingers. We don't have too many more pit lane speeding penalties.
Now someone needs to remove that 60 km/h board from the entry of pit lane, because that's mucked us all up.
That'll be tight. He was over, but he may be within the tolerance range, but it will be touch and go here, so he may end up picking one up.
We'll see how we go. The drivers have all been reminded through the briefing notes during the week that the reminder that the pit lane speed limit applies to all sessions, so drivers should have been warned that the pit lane speed limit applied. This is going to be tight between Devonish and Rosella now, because Devonish has had that penalty.
It's going to be easy.
And Rosella's clear. He's fine. He didn't get a speeding infringement. The Devonish is going to have a head of steam, though, and warm tyres. You'll see him come through back of shot. Or not. Just the headlights we saw back of shot. Rosella's got half the front straightaway.
He's far off. He's about 8 seconds away.
Because of the
We've
penalty.
got Brendan Ross in the pits again. It wasn't a penalty. I reckon something's happened. He's ended up behind Peter. I'm just having a look here.
Let's have a look.
On the replay,
happen?
he was just going slowly. Yeah, I reckon
Tyres.
he's perhaps...
He's forgotten to take tyres. Disaster for Brendan Ross.
Oh, that, and for PBF, it was looking like they were able to rectify, obviously, the issues that Foley's had, and without changing those tyres, well, it is a disaster. He's now behind Burko, and he may even find himself battling Lion Mitch towards the end here.
Fastest lap lowered by Kurt Stenberg again, goes from a 27.296 to a 27.268, so just taking some small little snips out of that newly minted track record and continuing to lower the mark. So this is really now the battle that we're going to be interested in seeing here. Can Pete Savage close down the margin to Will Devonish in these last 10 laps and have a shot at a third place podium finish?
I don't think he's going to have the pace. I reckon it may be between Rosella and Devonish. I'm just looking at the overall fastest lap times, and Devonish fastest lap 27.7 compared to a 28.2. He's going to have to be a little bit more than half a second faster on each lap, but we do know he has got a slight pace advantage. And he's a little bit closer, I think, than what Peter will be to Devonish, at least pace-wise.
Having a look at the sector times for the last two sectors, they were pretty well matched in Sector 2, 36.1 and a 36.1. Rosella was slightly quicker in Sector 3, 24.5 to a 24.6 that time around, but the real drama with the outlier was that Rosella was on an out lap and, well, Will was on a flying lap. So we're now going to get a bit of a reference as to how they go through Sector 1. And Will was faster that time around by 1/10 of a second. So at this pace, they're pretty much going to stay right where they are. New fastest lap for Stenberg. Oh, is that a 26.939? So we get the race lap record into the 26s. Oh, I guess he's just showboating now, isn't he, guys? He's got margin. He can do as he pleases.
Then he's also fresh set of tyres, not too much fuel, and the track would also be nice and rub it up. And also at this time of the evening, it will be cooling down just a little bit as well. So you're in a bit of the Hollywood period where not too much track temp, as well as, you know, nice fresh tyres and low fuel as well.
Yeah, only purple in sectors 1 and 3. Didn't have them all across the board though, but still quick enough. Now let's have a look at the times here. Rosella was quicker in Sector 2 over Devonish by 1/10 of a second, so that nullified that out. 27.9 for Rosella, 28.2 for Will. So he lost 0.3 of a second in that particular lap overall. And Peter at 28.9, so he's not going to catch Will at that rate.
Yeah, so probably going to be status quo, I'd say, at the moment, with I think one of the closer battles on track between Brendan Ross and Lion Mitch. The first time Lion Mitch has actually been near a car pretty much since the start of the race. I jumped in there early and he was quite bored because the biggest gap in front of him was over 30 seconds, 40 seconds, and the gap behind him was a good 15 and 20 as well. So also got Zach Ross, Liam Spencer still duking out as they're getting lapped with Cam Rutledge and Dane Liccardo also in tow. So there's the big battle pack as Stenberg, another 26, this time 26.8.
So that's only 0.2 off what his best effort in qualifying was as well. So this is really starting to get into some dangerous territory for the rest of the field, just sort of seeing what is actually possible out there right now. Dane Liccardo's gone to the back of this train. He was leading the train for a little while. He's gone to the back of the train in the last couple of laps. Zach Ross makes a half-hearted lunge down there at turn 6. And Brenton Foley just ahead of this battle, although be it he is a lap ahead. And Zach Ross has had some really good pace here, guys. Just has had some cars around him that have just been running a super defensive effort to keep him at bay, and he hasn't been able to make a pass stick.
Yeah, he doesn't seem quite confident enough to maybe just put it up the inside and back himself just to break a little bit later and get the move done. We saw that when he was behind Liccardo. He was close enough to make the moves and he just sat there, and it looks like it's the case again here. Also doesn't help when he's getting sideways as often as what he is as well. Also got Stenberg, looks like he's flying again. We may see an even faster lap. Looks like two purples in the first, second sector.
26.779, so again lowers the mark. Lowering it in 1/10 of a second increments at the moment. Gentlemen, I'm going to pose a question to you. There's a word that I mentioned a little while ago, conniptions. One or two people in the live stream don't seem to have heard it. Words you're both familiar with?
I've heard you say it, but I don't know what it means.
Well, conniptions is another word, I guess. You talk about like some of the expressions we've had, like, you know, be having puppies. When we talk about somebody that, you know, or having a heart attack type thing, having conniptions is like, you know, that. It's one of those silly sort of, you know, when you can't get the words out, that, you know, you have a moment because you're sort of in the moment where something happens and you don't know how to react, and you just react by, you know, doing things like that.
I guess another phrase for it could be a staresism, where he gets super excited and...
Staresism, that's something.
Yes. Of course, this.
But Steve, a lot of the vocabulary I actually use on this on these live streams, I actually learned from you. So
really,
you've said words that I actually have never heard in my life before.
Oh yeah, it's like making up new words and adding things to the dictionary.
Yeah, we're all about it. Someone's got to do it. But I mean, I think that your language sometimes is a bit obfuscatory.
I do get my words muddled up a couple of times every now and again, but that's part of the thing when you have a certain subject matter, that you're trying to get the right words out, but you sort of just can't get it out at the rate that you want to get it out at, or find the right words. Sometimes we have to have a bit of a reset and go again.
Well, I don't mind a bit of purposeful obfuscation when we're talking about things, but considering that our role is to make sense of things, to actually get the viewer to, you know, pay attention, I think that we shouldn't perhaps use these words, you know, simple English. It's always nice.
Might be always nice. Of course, for those that are AMS Oz aficionados, you would be aware that this is the very round where Stairs, I think, actually invented the very famous cheese grater sound. If you want to go back and have a look at his live stream, that is probably one of the most annoying sounds in the world. Something along the lines of and I can't remember where it was.
It sounds like a certain radio call that was done in Formula One, wasn't it?
Wait, yes.
No, stay out.
We've over the last couple of laps, we've had Liccardo in that little massive battle pack that was formed a while ago. He's actually at the front of that, and that's because Zach Ross ran into the back of Liam Spencer just a couple laps ago into turn 6.
That explains why he's gone 2 laps to a second lap down now, because you're right, there was a little bit willing here, and
he's having issues. He made an error earlier on this lap, and he's made another one at the final corner here. So Liam at the moment just struggling. He may even have a little bit of damage.
I reckon he's got a flat here, Lewis. I reckon he's coming to pit lane. I reckon he's possibly got a flat. Yeah, look at that big lock up.
He's got a flat.
Big lock up.
He didn't hit the wall, and he made up quite a bit of time in the pit stop. I wonder if he's either clipped the wall somewhere else, or if he didn't pit for tyres.
I'm not sure, but definitely there's his excursion across the grass at the final corner. But he had big front right lock-up coming into pit lane. So that car, and you can see there, the car was just struggling to turn right. So that's definitely a flat tyre every day of the week.
Oh, Dane's run off the road at turn 6, exit at turn 6.
And he's coughed it up to Zach Ross. But Zach Ross
has
has gone deep at turn 7 and has allowed Liccardo straight back and to go the long way around at the outside.
So, literally after coughing up the spot, Zach Ross coughs up the spot again.
Hip and shoulders. And Burko is right behind this pair as well, so he won't want to see them fighting over position here. Although, that's very wide, and that was very dangerous. I'm not sure if Zach Ross was far enough alongside to command the space there, but it was very late turn in, and the race leader's coming around as well. So Burko's going to go a lap down before the checkered flag. And this is playing for sheep stations at the moment. And Liccardo very wide at 1, Ross down the inside. This should be pass done, and Burko should follow him, and he does.
Perfect team play there. He's come through to lap him, and also he's blocked him on the exit to help Zach get away. But
that is a team player of a Ross or one, Lewis. You teach him well down there, don't you?
Yeah, it's beautiful stuff. It really does bring a tear to my eye seeing them work like a team like that, because most of the time all those guys are at each other having a crack. So
punting each other off.
Yeah.
You're a proud BMX dad, aren't you, Lewis?
Certainly am. But I did have a look and see what happened to Liam. Both he and Zach obviously had their own they got sideways out of turn 3. Liam was ahead of him at that stage, but Liam went around and hit the wall on the inside, so that's how he got his puncture.
Big send, big send.
And Kurt Stenberg got a bit of it as well. He actually went into the back of Zach Ross. They all survived.
They all survived somehow. Again, Stenberg would have been looking at that and have to pick his marker very, very quickly to see what happened there in that little exchange. Here it is again from the Zach Ross camp.
They all survived. We all mean they didn't end up in the fence and retire from the race.
Here we go. Here's the big send from Liccardo. So Stenberg was on the outside. Big send from Liccardo. And whoops. And then Zach Ross is wise enough head to say, yep, allow the race leader through and get it over and done with.
The race radio was like there as well. That would have been pretty interesting.
I think Mark Scaife, team radio. I know the one you're thinking of, Hans, would probably be the most applicable one. Can't be said on this broadcast, but...
if anyone knows the video...
Was it the one of I'm just about over this ...
Yeah.
The classic.
Right. Enough said. Enough said. Winding down the laps. Just 2 more to go for the race leader. 3 more for the guys that are a lap down.
Luke Rosella, he snatched a good result out of this, probably due to the misfortune of the 3 guys behind him. But a good fight back from Rosella. Like I always say, this kid is dynamite.
Yeah, I had a word with him, obviously, just after qualifying. He made a couple changes. He and his engineer made some late changes to the car, Peter Suraj, and yeah, he wasn't quite happy with the changes they made. He's sort of reverted back to that for the race, and he does seem a little bit more happier here in this one. So good to see he's up there in second. Foley was another one that he was actually quite happy with his qualifying efforts, and he wanted he would have been happy with the top 4. Obviously, that pit lane penalty not helping his cause in this one, but certainly one of his better runs, at least pace-wise, compared to Peter, Devonish, and Rosella than what he's been all season. He's been one that. You know, he hasn't been quite comfortable in setting up these cars. He hasn't been able to get into the sweet spot of these new physics, but hopefully this is a round, even though the result might not show it in the end, but a round where he's able to turn the corner a little bit and show a bit of pace in the second half of the season.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. There's plenty of guys that have got some pace to show in this final stanza of the season. Well, the guy that's got all the pace and the guy that I guess has the target on his back and wears it with pride, I think you can probably say. It's been business as usual, Hans, for Kurt Stenberg tonight. This is the kind of margin that we would have seen at the last of the real proper long-distance races that he won at Townsville. Had it not been for the safety car, this would have been the gap that he had on the field at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've got Peter he ran off the road at the final corner, so he's lost a fair amount of time to Brenton Foley there.
And he's safe
Peter,
at the moment.
that shouldn't be bad for him.
So yeah, around the final corner for Kurt Stenberg. Plain sailing all night long. Only relinquished the lead when he came in for the stops. And a very, very comfortable victory in the end. I've lost count of how many victories he's got now. I'll have to go back and have another look. But he's won the majority of the season so far. And the pace that he's showing, he absolutely deserves it.
I'd say we've run out of fingers to count them, Steve.
Well, we've run out of fingers. We now have to use our toes.
Whatever you can find.
Whatever we can find. Luke Rosella, comfortable margin over Will Devonish after the stops. That round of pit lane speeding penalties for Savage, Devonish and Foley really hurt their chances of really threatening for second, third and so on. And free kick to this man though. This is going to move him well and truly up the order in the point standings. So nice podium finish for Luke Rosella in second place. Will Devonish home for third. Would have hoped for a little bit better. Cruelled by the pit lane speeding penalty. So too this man, Pete Savage. He's going to have to hold off a late charge from Foley, having made that mistake on the previous lap, but he's going to get home for fourth. He would have been targeting a podium finish for sure there, Lewis.
Yeah, he wanted to give Devonish and Stenberg a little bit of run for their money. He did so in the early stages, unable to bring it home, and it looks like he's actually got a significant amount of damage on the front end, so I wonder if he's made contact with perhaps lap traffic or a wall somewhere.
Possibly. Burko, the first of the cars, a lap down in sixth place, so he's home for P6. Rossi, P7. Now, where are they doing burnouts? That's a bit of a weird one. Lion Mitch in 8th. Termo, pretty lonely race from Termo P9. And P10 for Zach Ross across the line now. I'm just having a bit of a look at where Kurt Stenberg's pulled up, guys. He's pulled up on the exit. He had pulled up on the exit of turn number 1. Now, well, he's done a little loop there, but I think he's now escaped to the garage, I believe. We've just lost him temporarily. I was wondering if he was waiting. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I was wondering whether or not he'd pulled up to do some burnouts there. That wasn't actually the designated burnout spot for
he didn't
the drivers tonight.
Burnouts, but I did just have a look at any stream, and he had 1 lap of fuel left, so he just pulled up and he stopped the car and he just jumped out of the seat for a little bit.
All right, there you go. So just pulling up to get done, and off the road at turn 1. So. Just waiting for a few things to sort themselves out here. And there we go. And, well, gentlemen, we can, after 51 laps, it turned out to be pretty much business as usual for Kurt Stenberg out the front, as what's been most of the case this season. I'm just waiting for the drivers to make their way up, but it turned out to be a lonely race for some, didn't it?
Yeah, it is quite a difficult track to sort of get a handle on, and I think, we will see rather large margins, but we did see some good racing, though, throughout the race, which was good to see. So for the most part, outside of pretty much Lime Mitch and, of course, our leader, Kurt Stenberg, pretty much everybody was involved in a battle either in front or behind throughout the race. So I think most of the drivers are fairly entertained, but, there were some large margins obviously at the end there, but it would have been a lot closer had drivers not given themselves some drive-throughs by a little bit of speeding on the way into the pit lane.
Yeah, that sort of quelled the battles that were probably shaping up with all the pit lane strategy toward the end of it. We were expecting a number of guys to come together and have a good scrap for the podium, and, well, 3 out of those 4 drivers ended up having to tour the lane. So it really did sort of put a dampener on what was possibly shaping up to be a good finish there, Hans.
Yeah, it was going to become a good finish, but Kurt Stenberg, he really drove away from the field. Average lap time quicker of about 0.91 second a lap almost. So 40-second margin in the end. So very impressive from Kurt Stenberg, wasn't it?
Yeah, it definitely was. And he's here right now. And Kurt, well, business as usual, mate. I don't think we can really say anything more than that. And very, very comfortable victory in the end. You looked like you were a horse just cantering to the line for most of that, and did it very, very easily.
Yeah, it was a bit cruisy out there, mate. It was a bit like a test session, to be honest. Yeah.
That's a pretty interesting way of summing up. Just like a test session, you were expecting a bit more of a challenge, I take it, then, after some of the guys that were setting some times in qualifying and practice were probably a little bit closer.
Yeah, I'm surprised that I won by that much. I've done a lot of laps at this place because we raced here twice in ASC. So I've done 2 race nights here with more aggressive tyre wear as well. But I was expecting to have a bit more of a challenge than that. I was a bit surprised that I just drove away and dropped the field, and then from that point onwards, it was basically just drive around and make sure you don't shunt it.
Yeah, pretty much. I think you hit the nail on the head there, just not put it into a fence. And I guess the only real trouble you had most of the night was just to negotiate some of the lap traffic when it came up. There was a little bit of an interesting battle a bit later on with a couple of laps to go, where I think Dane Liccardo had a bit of a send on Zach Ross, and you had to very quickly pick a gap to slot into. That was probably about as worse as it got for you, I think.
Yeah, pretty much. I didn't really want to interfere in their battle, but then he had that send, and I'm just like, well, I'm kind of in an awkward spot here, so I thought I'll just get past it and get out of it before I end up involved in it. So I didn't want to get taken out or anything at that point. I mean, I had a pretty solid lead, so let's just consolidate and hopefully get to the line and not get involved in whatever they were doing.
Well, you did the right thing, I guess, most of the night. Kept it clean, kept it on the road, set string after string of fastest laps. Congratulations not only on the win, but resetting both the lap records tonight as well, and both your laps actually within about a tenth and a half of each other. Those lap times are going to take some beating by some of these guys, and I think they've got some work to do. Congratulations.
Thanks, mate. See you at the next one.
Absolutely. Hans, let's have a chat to the guys who filled the rest of the rostrum. And P2, still another podium for the kiddies, racking them up.
Another podium for the kid, Luke Rosella. Another good performance, but wasn't looking that good early in the race. But later on in the race, it came good with a few misfortunes. But Luke, how was that, mate?
Yeah, thanks, Hans. I think that's a win for me because made a few last-minute changes in quali. I was pretty desperate to find some sort of speed. Didn't work, so the car was awful. So then I reverted back to another setup, and it was a bit of an improvement. But pretty surprised. I just concentrated on making no mistakes, and I ended up P2.
A good solid response from your last round, which you won at Hamilton. But tell us a bit more about that interesting radio call where your engineer, Peter Suraj, told you to just get good.
Yeah, he was trying to find any word of encouragement, certainly in the first stint. But I actually had a cooling apparatus failure in the second stint, and I was absolutely sweating my ass off, to be honest with you. So I had to battle with that, and he told me to get good again in the final stint because Devonish was hot on my tails. But lucky I pitted later, so I had the fresher tyres, so held off him, and good to get the P2.
Yeah, it wasn't an ideal race for you, but good to see you up there in the end. Congratulations.
Thanks, mate.
And third place getter for tonight, Will Devonish. Another case of what may have been for you, Will, but not ideal going into the pit lane.
Oh, that was a miserable race. Coming to the pits, I actually made the speed, but I didn't put my limiter on. So I slammed the accelerator on, expecting the limiter to be there, and it wasn't. I knew the moment it hit 50, I knew I was gone for that. And I was just hoping I had enough of a gap on everyone else so that it wouldn't have hurt too much. But Luke was able to pit me, so it was sort of a race that could have been, but I don't think second would have been the best anyway.
Yeah, your pace in the first stint wasn't that good. Can you tell us what exactly went wrong in the first stint?
Got to the line, realized I didn't map a handbrake, and then I didn't turn on the fan in my room, so I was sweating bullets for that stint, and it just got into my head. That's all I was focusing on. I wasn't focusing on the driving. So all I really was focusing on getting to that first pit stop, which meant the lap times just fell off a cliff. So something I need to sort out myself, I guess.
Probably not this race, but good to salvage a podium from that, Will. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So, Steve, those were our top three place getters. Another race win for Kurt Stenberg. A very dominant race win. Luke Rosella snatching a second, and Will Devonish salvaging a third place, and valuable points for the championship.
Yeah, you're not wrong there, Hans. Dominant win, as we've said several times. He seems to like the longer format of the races, and he's certainly going the right way about putting a stamp of authority on this championship at the rate things keep going. Just doing a little bit of a calculation on the points at the moment just to see how things are standing. He's increased his margin out to 237 points with 4 rounds to go. Brenton Foley's still in third, Termo in fourth, and then Luke Rosella. We did say he was going to vault up the order, and he has done. He's all the way up to 5th place now, only 42 points behind Termo, with still plenty of time on the board. Balance the top 10, Lewis Wedding, Liam Spencer, Pete Savage, Steve Burko. Now, I've just got to be careful here because Steve Burko actually has points from 2 different things. In actual fact, Steve Burko is 4th. I do apologise. He's had to move up the order. We've had to just do a few calculations there. So he's 4th, from Termo 5th, and Rosella 6th. Then Wedding, Liam Spencer, Peter Savage, and then the top 10 is rounded out by Cam Rutledge. So still the usual guys that we've seen on the point standings for the last couple of rounds inside the top 10. But they have shuffled around a little bit, and with only 4 rounds to go, still a lot to play for. And as we said at the beginning, Hans, if there's anything left to play for, they've got to start making some moves quickly because it's the championship's starting to fast get away from some of these guys.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's very quickly getting to the business end of the season, and it's almost time to stamp your authority if you're able to, and if not, just try and amass as many race wins and good performances as you can.
Well, speaking of the business end of the season, there are plenty of things at the business end of this year alone. We've hit spring. We've got 4 months left to go. And it's hard to believe. Some people feel like this year's going slow. Some people feel like it's going pretty quick. But there's still a plenty of things going on in the land of AMS Oz. So, GT3 Sprint Series is a series that is only got 2 rounds left to go. So the next round is next week. Bahrain International Circuit. That is a night event, GT3 drivers, but you will not need your headlights because the track is floodlit. So nothing like the Bahrain International Circuit under lights. You see it in Formula 1. We're going to see it in the GT3 Sprint Series next week. ATCC Group A, the night after that. So Hidden Valley comes up on the calendar over on the Endurance Chat Media channel for the next round of ATCC, and a very hotly contested series. After that, Porsche Cup the Tuesday after next, Queensland Raceway, one of the circuits that we ran in Supercars last year and got a fair showing through AMS Oz through 2019, but it hasn't really had much of a showing this year, but it's going to play host to a 2-race format for the Porsche Cup. And then the next Supercars event is in 2 weeks' time, September the 17th. Now, Supercars drivers, you need to pay attention to that one because it is a 250-kilometre race. It is a qualifying and shootout night in 2 weeks from now, with the race night to follow on September 23rd. So follows a similar race format to what we ran for the Adelaide 250 at the beginning of the year, with the qualifying and shootout on separate nights. So notes will be put out during the week about that one, so please be familiar with the format. It will be a slightly shorter night for some, and a little bit longer, shorter night for others that don't make the top 10. But we do welcome those guys to come and watch the live stream after it's all said and done. And don't forget this too, guys, the Bathurst 500 for AMS Oz on the 22nd and the 25th of October. There is still plenty of room left in the entry list if you are still looking for a teammate. If you're looking, if you haven't even entered yet and you still want to run, please get in touch with us via Facebook or the Discord channels, and we'll point you in the right direction. A note for the guys from Super 2, because the Super 2 season has finished last week, with honours going to Burko, Lime Mitch, and then myself in P3. We are having a night off this week from doing any form of Supercars racing, but we will have a practice server up for Bathurst next week on Friday, and we'll do another one of those sessions so guys can come in and learn how all the driver swaps work. And we'll do a little bit of, I guess, some strategy training and things like that as well, and try and get some of the guys up to speed that haven't had a lot to do with longer distance Supercars racing up to speed. Well, Hans, how did we sum up tonight? I guess aside from a dominant victory, it was a quiet race for some. It was an interesting race for others. There was a little bit of everything, but dominant win in the end. A win's a win.
A win's a win, and also some of the mid-pack battling was very interesting. We saw Burko, a couple of the PBF guys, and also guys like Dane Liccardo making his first appearance in the main series tonight, and also Liam Spencer and Cam Rutledge getting up and about there. So very good racing up and down the field, and perhaps a bit too stretched out at the front, but in the mid-pack it was quite wild and willing.
Yeah, I would sort of say the same thing. I think a lot of the guys on the back end of the top 10 had some really interesting battles, and that was probably where it was at for the minute, or for me anyway. The real battle that we were looking for never really materialised at the end, but there's always another race, and the next one is in a couple of weeks from now, so we'll leave it there for tonight. Thanks for tuning in. As always, please drive safely. We'll see you next week for GT3 Sprint Series, and if you're looking for Supercars,